My microphone's on. The chair will bring to order the Monday, January 9th, 2017. It's a new year. Meeting to order. Is there anyone in the public wishing to address the board on any item not on today's agenda? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for approval of the minutes of our meeting on December 19th. Do I have...
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Let me make sure I get the right one here. Oops. 19th, I got 12th. So the 19th or the 12th? I've got something marked here, the 12th.
We've got the
Somebody remind me.
12th minutes and
The
the
19th is the
consent
consent.
minutes.
So is that 12th incorrect, Kathleen? It should be 12th.
The 19th.
And there was a 19th consent. Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. So we're on the, oh, I see what's going on. It's the minutes of December 12th, not 19th.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was our full meeting. So we have a motion for approval. I think we had a second. So let's go through each item one by one in case there's any comments or corrections. Item number 1, 920 Mission Ridge Road. Item number 2, 288 Cannon Drive. Item number 3, 1631 Shoreline Drive. Item number 4, 1106 Crestline Drive. Item number 5, 820 Centinela Lane. Hearing no corrections or additions, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Then let's go to the consent calendar for, do we have to do December 19th, I believe, consent? Yeah, I think that's what that means. Okay. So we do have 19th in front of us, consent calendar. Katie, do you want to go through that, please?
The minutes from the December 19th consent agenda are as follows. Item A, 920 Mission Ridge Road. Receive final approval as submitted of review after final changes. Item B, 502 Los Alturas Road. Received final approval as submitted of review after final changes. Item C, 1893 Eucalyptus Hill Road. Received final approval as submitted. Item D, 453 Los Alturas Road. Received final approval as submitted. Item E, 1686 Las Canoas Road. Received project design approval of the landscape and lighting plan. And item F, 329 Linda Road, received project design approval and final approval with the condition to replace the lava rock with a gravel and stone mix in a sandstone color.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for approval? Do I have a second? Second? I think. Oh.
Second.
Joe did. You weren't listening. Joe beat you out. Okay. Okay. Any further comments or corrections? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. So let's go to consent calendar for this morning, January 9th. Katie.
The minutes for the January 9th, 2017 consent meeting are as follows. Item A, 329 Linda Road, received final approval as submitted of review after final changes. Item B, 1721 La Cornea Drive, received final approval as submitted. Item C, 841 De La Guerra Terrace, received final approval with the condition that Tier 3 Stormwater Management Program requirements must be met and approved by the Creeks Division prior to submitting to Building and Safety. Item D, 1123 Garcia Road, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code. Item E, 606 Sunrise Vista Way, received project design approval and final approval is submitted with a finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code. Item F, 1215 Calle Cerrito, received positive comments. It was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with positive comments that the modification requests conform with the neighborhood. Item G, 53 Vista Del Mar Drive, received project design approval and final approval with the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria have been met as stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara's Municipal Code. Item H, 2439 Santa Barbara Street, was continued 2 weeks to the full board with comments that the roof may not be compatible with the neighborhood, the proximity of the front door may be too close to the street, the style of architecture may be incompatible with the neighborhood, and the alteration of the hipped roof to a shed roof may be incompatible with the neighborhood. Item I, 11 Pine Drive, was continued 1 week to consent with the comment for the applicant to revise the landscape plan. And that was it.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I'd like
Yes.
to add something to the comment for item H, 2439 Santa Barbara
Yes.
Street, that the proximity of the front door and the all-glass door and side lights not only would be in too close proximity to the streetscape, but would create a lantern effect. We were concerned about the glass.
Thank you. So do I have a motion for approval?
Wait, and one other thing, Mr. Chair. There were so many that got by, but I think that one of them that was included was on just 329 Linda Road, which I just wanted to make sure that it looks like the wall was going to be replaced with gravel and stone sandstone colored. Is that still moving forward with the next phase? We have it on 2 different pages.
I think, what are you looking at?
Item A was also on the last agenda. They received final approval on the December 19th meeting, and then they came back this week for a review after final. They wanted to increase the height of the wall by 1 more brick. It was a couple inches or something. So they still have to change the gravel or the lava rock to the
Still
gravel.
carries
Yes.
forward. Okay, that answers that
Okay.
right here.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll
They-
make that motion.
And do I have a second?
No, let me come before.
Make the second, and then we still have discussion. We don't want to have to vote, because I have some questions too, but go ahead.
I'll make a second.
Okay, there's a second. Okay, so now the motion is on the floor. Now you can ask your questions.
I was on a consent this morning. If the question you asked has to do with the ground cover? is
She
that-
already answered my
Yeah,
question.
They did change, in our meeting this morning, he did change the ground cover.
The lava rock changed to a gravel and stone mix.
In a gray coloring.
In a gray cover.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of questions on the 606 Sunrise Vista Way. I believe that had come to the full board, and that's the point where I think we rejected the gray roof or the blue roof or whatever it was. So what did they actually submit? What color?
They came back with the approved red tile, the curved red tile that we requested that they bring back to consent with a physical tile, and we approved it, but the owner was not happy, and the Mesa Association people missed, they were too late for the review, so there was
Okay.
some controversy around it.
Joe? Okay. And then I'm curious, and I do need to share with you, 2439 Santa Barbara Street, I actually can see that from my house. So even when it comes back to the full board, I will be having to step down because it's too close. But I was curious, right now we're having to look at a red underlayment on that roof. What color of roof were they
Well,
proposing?
evidently, they put up a temporary front door there to give all of us and whoever looks at it an idea of what they're proposing.
Yeah.
And I assume that's still up there.
They
but
called it
that's
a mock-up.
a mock-up, but they really went into a mock-up. They had to
pretty-
remove part of the
Oh, yeah,
roof.
no, I've seen it.
Fred, they're proposing a standing seat metal roof.
And that's
But-
why we
but what-
kicked it up to the full board.
But what color? I was just curious.
They
You
didn't.
didn't
Oh,
get
they
that
didn't say,
far.
okay.
Because there
All
are.
right, anyway, when it does
standing-
come, I will have to step down, because it's too close to my house, because it's too close to my house.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Standing seat metal roof.
There's a
was a
radius
standing-
around my
How big is that radius?
300 feet.
Okay, I didn't know that,
And-
that's,
and- Well, yeah, you all
500.
have that in your, in case you didn't know, you all have that in your guidelines. If you have a property that's within 300 feet of the property you own, then you have a conflict. It's actually probably a little bit more than 300 feet, but my rule of thumb is to be safe is like 1,000 feet. Just so that there's no accusation that I'm making a decision on somebody's house in the neighborhood that could affect the value of my property.
got it.
That's why they have that rule in place. It's actually a state law. Yes.
You asked a question about what the roof was going to be finished with.
Oh, I was interested in the color.
Well, the color is, they're proposing a metal roof, and that's one of the reasons we.
Oh, okay.
And another thing, nobody can hear me because I don't have a,
Go get one.
He needs a, you know, you
I'm
didn't,
talking loud so the greater Santa Barbara can hear me.
doesn't have a microphone. Okay.
Yeah, they're proposing a metal roof, and that's one of the reasons.
Oh,
why we
okay.
brought it.
All right, okay. Thank you. All right, that answers my questions. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, the chair will call, whoops, we okay? The chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, now we're down to announcements, et cetera. Katie, but I understand that tonight we're supposed to vote for.
I was given instruction that we won't be doing that tonight.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, so we're skipping that till whenever. But I do have a subcommittee report, and I would like to bring that to the attention of the board. For those of you who didn't get a copy with the exhibits, I'm going to pass those out. Did you all get
I
ones
did,
with
thank you, Fred.
exhibits? Okay. And
Yeah,
I'm going to
these are
pass these
different.
along to staff.
Yeah, they're two different things.
One's from the city and one's should be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
one
one
is
is our
Fred
report,
wrote,
and one is from
and
the
one's
city
from the
that
city.
you all should have received on the afternoon of the 23rd of December, before the staff went on break. So if you need a copy of our subcommittee report, I have those. Okay. Keep one for myself. I'll pass a couple down to staff. They'd like those. Basically, as you recall, a year or so plus ago, we were informed by staff that a NZO process was underway to modify the new zoning or to prepare a new zoning ordinance to replace the one that a lot of which hadn't been touched in many, many years. Unfortunately, that was the last time we had any official contact as a board, and I have been following it as best I can, but there were many occasions where we didn't receive notices. In fact, one I didn't get until about 2 hours before the meeting, but I did attend. But as a result of that, you recall, we appointed a subcommittee to try to follow the process of what was going to happen with this NCO. And on the 23rd of December, you all did receive a memo, and I understand some of you didn't get it, but staff did send us an email late in the afternoon on the 23rd before they left on vacation to inform us that they were going to be here today to present an update on what was happening with the zoning ordinance. What's interesting is the one meeting that I did go to, see if I can find it here. We're now in the process, and I'm sure staff is going to share with you, that's near the end of a 2-year effort. So we haven't had a lot of time to respond to this. I did manage to pull the subcommittee together last Wednesday to review what had been presented on the 23rd, and essentially we came up with a whole lot of questions. So that's kind of what this report represents, because we really hadn't had time to go through a rather thick document here. In fact, this is the schedule that was presented. So I'm just going to briefly go through those, and then I'll throw it open for anybody's questions or comments or whatever input you have. One of the things that we have to deal with quite often on this board, particularly when we get applicants on the board that are not necessarily have a depth of professional background. You know, one of the things that's our challenge here at this board is that under California state law, anyone can design a single-family home. Okay, we're unlike some other states where they require licensed architects to do that. We're not required. So sometimes we get folks that are trying to just do it all themselves. And one of the things that we run into quite often is people sitting here going, well, why do I have to have a setback? What's a setback all about? And, you know, we just read them the definition, but we really don't have an answer for them. So one of the questions the subcommittee had is this new NZO somewhere in that document going to have a way to define why we have setbacks? Now, there is kind of something in the draft that I did see under section 28.04.010 that does kind of formulate about air and space and light and so forth, but it doesn't really specifically speak to setbacks, but maybe that's a place, maybe that was the intent, I don't know. The other thing that we deal with a considerable amount of time is the issue of the city's topography. We have a lot of homes on the Riviera. We have a lot of homes out on, I would say, the city side of the Mesa. That's basically west of Valerio Street, where we have a lot of little canyons out there. We have a lot of homes that are on very steep sites. And so we're wondering what in this new ordinance really addresses what was a two-dimensional overlay in 1975, as I understand it, where some of the setbacks were increased rather dramatically. We see that quite often on the Riviera, where the setbacks are now 30 feet, but where many of those homes are built really up close to the street. And that's kind of what I intended by this little sketch on Exhibit 1, where we have a lot of houses that are within 20 feet of the property line. That's just kind of the way they were built prior to 1975. And so we end up with a lot of folks coming to our board for review before they go to the staff hearing officer because they have to get a modification. And it's my understanding every time you have to go get a modification, that's like a $1,000 hit for the first one, and then it's $500, and then I think it gets doubled if you did something without permit, whatever. I mean, it's, it's relatively complicated. So that was a little concerning to us, is how does this new zoning ordinance really address that? The other thing is definitions, and I'm going to go back to that Exhibit 1, is we just wanted to know, has there been conversations between the folks working on the NZO and transportation and particularly building and safety? Because the definition, for instance, just picking one thing at random, definition of basement in the California Residential Building Code is nothing like the definition of basement under our current zoning code. And that kind of presents a challenge in some cases. If you go back to Exhibit 1, you'll see that there's a lot of homes built in our city, and this is just an example of one that perhaps could be up on the Riviera or other places, where there's an undeveloped underspace of slope, 30%. So in this example, the back end, the high end is at 3 feet, the bottom end is at 7 feet. Well, under the definition to develop the FAR, which we all look at very carefully, right? Mm-hmm. A basement gets counted at 50% under the FAR because the definition, as I read it under the zoning code, is a basement is defined by anything deeper than 4 feet at the entire perimeter of the area underneath the first floor. So that whole definition thing is a little worrisome because you have some folks that are getting their space under their house counting as a basement, even though it's probably totally unimproved. It's just dirt. That's the way it was graded when it was built back in 1920. So again, that was kind of a question. Let's see, where am I? Suzanne Elledge in this process actually had sent several letters, and I've looked at those as they've gone through the process, and it also relates to the issues that we run into with slope sites. And we're just wondering how, from the NZO team, how they addressed it. They may have, but I wasn't really able to nail it down. The other one is what we call the 50% rule. And as you know, we've had many a project here, particularly homes that are over on the mesa, probably more near City College, and we have some other places in town where they have relatively tiny lots, like 8,000 square feet, and they have a 1,800 square foot house or 1,600 square foot house, and they come in and they want to add a master bedroom. Well, under the rule, they have to, and many of those are just one-car garages, as you all recall. There's a lot of little small one-car garages. Well, under that rule, if they add more than 50% to their house, and a little tiny house, if you want to add a master bedroom, you can do that pretty easily. You can't do it because you would then have to provide 2 off-site parking spaces on your property. So Suzanne Elledge brought that to the attention of the, within the process. We're just wondering how that was addressed. Also addressed in the process, and I think at one of the meetings I was at, there is a notion that we do recognize the need for the 1,250 square feet of open space in a single-family home site. But there was a request to eliminate the 20-foot by 20-foot contiguous dimension, because sometimes, again, on sloping sites, it's really hard to achieve. So that may have been addressed in this process. I don't know. The other thing that occurred in the December 23rd memo to us, it appears there are now several things, and again, we're posing this as a question, that may be coming to us to have us as a board make calls rather than, in some cases, things we're used to having the staff hearing officer make a call on, et cetera. One of those is air conditioning, condenser units, swimming pool equipment being allowed to remain in the setback. I think some of the concern with the subcommittee is, are we going to have enough tools in our toolbox to deal with that, particularly when it comes to sound, it comes to odors generated by trash cans, waste containers, et cetera. The off-street parking, hiding the cars. There's now some proposal under this NZO where they would allow off-street parking of automobiles in the front yard. That, in a lot of ways, may change some of the neighborhood compatibility issues that we have to deal with as a board. And so we have questions. What does that really mean? You know, one of the places that it dramatically shows up, and I'm going to pull this out, put it on the screen, dramatically shows up in our city. We have several major entry points off of Highway 101 to Santa Barbara, but one of them is Las Positas Road, and if you've traveled there in the last year or so, even more, there's a whole bunch of homes on the upside of the street across from World War Showgrounds that have automobiles camped in the front yard. A lot of them are just on dirt now. We've had a drought. But they're all parking within the setback. So, and they're up high. So the question becomes, what is going to be the tools in our toolkit if we're given the job to determine whether or not those folks will be allowed to park in their front yard, and how do we as a board have to deal with that? So that's maybe more of a process question. Again, the issue with hedge height. The current hedge ordinance, as I understand it, if hedges want to be taller than 12 feet, remember they can go to 8 feet and they can get it from staff over the counter, they can get a 4-foot increase to the hedge. But if they want to go higher than that, then there's another process that has to go through. And the current ordinance, the way I understand it, the community development director had to make the call on that. The new NZO, the way I was reading the memo, seems to appear that that's going to come to us to make that decision. And so one of my process questions is, does that start automatically a consent calendar? There's apparently something about public noticing. So we're just not quite sure how that all will work. The accessory buildings, and this is some questions, again, of how it's really going to work. The new NZO says basically we're going to take what used to be allowed as a garage and an accessory building, we're going to combine those into the square footage, and now can go up to 1,000 square feet on acre lots or larger. Some of us, I think, may have concern about that move, but again, we're not quite sure what that all means. And then we've been told on several occasions that our whole challenge that we've had to deal with, in fact, there is an appeal in front of City Council about a bluff top process that we reviewed, of when that issue is going to be addressed. When we have properties along the creeks or along the bluffs where there's several thousands of square feet or hundreds of square feet on a property that can't be touched because there's other coastal regulations, et cetera. So therefore, we're required to deal with our FAR study on a large house that's going to get shoved generally to the front of the site near the street, and yet the applicant can use all the square footage, even though they can't build on, you know, a third or two-thirds or whatever the distance is. But the subcommittee was just curious as when will this be addressed, because it's an ongoing challenge. So we're hoping that some of these questions will be able to be answered to us before this moves on to the Planning Commission and the City Council, so that we have an opportunity to do a little bit more work and kind of understand what's going on. So that's our report, and then I'm going to look to my colleagues to see if they have anything else.
Oh, thank you. I think you did a very good job.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
Curious to.
Oh, myself, Brian, and Denise. Okay. Okay. And we met last Wednesday. Okay. All right. If there are no other further questions, then I will close subcommittee reports, and let's go to anything else. Katie, do we have any other announcements?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And let us go to our first item, which is a report on the new NZO. Mr. Cato is here. Mr. Cato, it's yours.
Thank you, Chair Sweeney and members of the Single Family Design Board. My name is Danny Cato. I'm the senior planner in charge of the new zoning ordinance process. And I'm here to give you a little, to tell you about some of your new design review authority that's proposed through new zoning ordinance. ENZO for short. So this is going to be broken up into two sections: new design review approvals and changed design review approvals. So let's start with, oh, you know what? Let's start with the goals overall of ENZO. The overall goals are to have a zoning ordinance that's restructured, easier to understand, with language that's modern language instead of language from, in some cases, the 30s, some cases the 50s, and any time it's been amended over since 1957. So we're trying to get it to be modern and current. We're trying to get some flexibility in administering the code, although I had big plans for that, and that has sort of fallen by the wayside in a lot of ways. And we want to be very responsive to non-conforming situations, non-conforming buildings, buildings built in setbacks, non-conforming uses, that kind of thing. Again, so I skipped to this slide already, but there's going to be some, where ENZO is proposing, at least, new design review approvals for accessory buildings, encroachments into setbacks, alterations within setbacks, fences and hedges, screening, a replacement of demolished non-conforming buildings, open yards, and outdoor sales and display. Let's start with accessory buildings first. Right now, Chair Sweeney, it's not exactly as you portrayed in your comments from the subcommittee. Right now, the zoning ordinance differentiates between whether your lot size or what zone you're in. So if you're in the A1, A2 zone, or if you have a lot that's over 20,000 square feet, you get 750 square feet of garage, and you get 500 square feet of detached accessory building. And that's by right. Everybody gets that, right? There's no discretion involved in that. If you want more than that, you need to ask for a modification, and we get those. If you're less than 20,000 square feet, or if you're in a zone, a single family zone that's not A1 or A2, right? Then you're limited to 500 square feet of a garage and 500 square feet of detached accessory, so 1,000 square feet. And again, that's by right. And so what we're proposing two things. First of all, increasing the amount that you can have if you're greater than 1 acre in size. Right now, remember I said 20,000 square feet or less, or if you're the A1 zone. What we're proposing is, so 0 to 20,000 square feet. Oh, do I have this? It's a little bit hard to read, but if you're this column, if you're less than 20,000 square feet in lot size, nothing changes. You have 500 square feet of covered parking, 500 square feet of detached accessory for a total of 1,000 square feet. Nothing changes as far as size goes. If you're greater than 20,000 and up to an acre, nothing changes, right? 750 that I already talked about, plus the 500 that I already talked about, total 1,250. What Enzo proposes are these two columns. So if you're greater than an acre but less than 3 acres, then what is proposed is instead of a total of 1,250, you get 1,500. So essentially an extra 250 square feet of detached accessory building. And then if you're 3 acres or larger, then instead of 1,250, it would go up to 1,750 here. So an extra 500 square feet of combined. So size-wise, nothing happens until you go over an acre. And then an acre to 3 acres, you get an extra 250 square feet. And then beyond 3 acres, you get another 250 square feet. The main thing, though, that's changing is that right now, your covered parking can only be used for covered parking, and your detached accessory can only be used for detached accessory. So let's just concentrate on this less than 20,000. It's easier to think about it. Right now, you cannot have a 1,000 square foot garage. If you want more than 500 square feet of a garage, you need to get a modification. Okay? So what Enzo proposes is that you can use that 1,000 square feet for whatever you want as far as garage. And so you can have a 3-car garage and a 250 square foot accessory building. You can have a 4-car garage. If you're, if you have the 80% FAR or 85% FAR and you get reduced parking, you could have 0 parking space, 0 covered, and 1,000 square foot accessory building. So it's just being able to use it how you want instead of being mandated, no, only 500 square feet of garage and only 500 square feet of detached accessory. That's the main difference as far as how you can use the space. Now there are some restrictions that are proposed. Sorry, I'm moving this thing the wrong way. First is they're limited to a maximum of 500 square feet of livable floor area. So livable is kind of a new, it is a new concept. Most people consider it habitable space, but habitable, according to the building code, is different than what we would think of as habitable, right? Habitable in the building code doesn't include hallways and laundry rooms and stuff like that, where we would count that in zoning. So we're calling that livable space. Over maximum 500 square feet livable, anything over that requires a modification. The maximum size of a single building is 1,250. So that's the same as today. If you want 1,750 on a 3-acre lot, it's got to be a 1,250 and a 500, or some other combination that's 2 buildings less than 1,250 each. Third one is the minimum number of required parking spaces must be provided for. So if you don't qualify for those reductions because of your FAR, you need 2 covered parking spaces, and then the rest of it can be used for whatever you want, more garages or accessory. And then design review, this is where you guys come in, is required for covered parking or accessory buildings over 500 square feet, or if 3 or more covered spaces are proposed. And the reason that we propose it this way is because, at least among the staff, there was a concern about we didn't want a 4-car garage facing the street, right? 4 garage doors or 2 double garage doors just straight off the street. And that's primarily an aesthetic issue, not a zoning issue, but that's why it would be appropriate for the single-family design board or whatever body, is the design board to review it. So that's what's going on with accessory buildings.
You want to have questions now or later?
Yeah, no, why not?
Then I have a question. Because of the nature of this board, a lot of things we see never end up having to go through the planning commission process,
Correct.
correct? So it's a public, in a lot of cases, these are public noticed processes.
Correct.
So these folks will come before us, and so the board, I can anticipate the board looking up and seeing a whole neighborhood here, not happy because somebody wants to build a 1,250 square foot accessory building on their 3-acre parcel or their, whatever the qualification is, and wants to store a bunch of cars, or the perception of the audience is, oh, that's just in the dwelling unit, because in a lot of places, a 1,250 square foot building is a nice size house. So how do we deal with the fact that we may be looking at a floor plan without a whole lot of effort can be turned into a dwelling unit? How do we deal with that on this board, or are we supposed to deal with that on this board?
Well, again, that's why we have a livable floor area limit of 500 square feet. So it can't be configured as a 1,250 or 1,250 square foot all living space, right?
So if it quacks like a duck, you will determine whether it's quacking or not.
So does that happen before it gets here?
We don't do as good a job as I would like, but yes, that happens before it gets to you.
So we'd have some assurance that somebody's analyzed the 500 livable square footage before it shows up in front of us, so that all we're dealing with is the exterior aesthetics.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah, and
Yeah, we do.
and those types of things always should be brought back to staff, because staff makes the decisions on the floor plan configurations.
Okay?
Could you explain, maybe go back to the slide, because I really couldn't see the numbers on it, but how are we impacting smaller lots, like, say, older houses on the west side and the lot size is about 6,000
I
or
would say no change.
no change to?
No change.
So we're mostly talking about
Well,
over an
okay,
acre?
sorry. One change, there's no change to the potential size. There is the change that you could use it in different ways, but that doesn't affect the physical layout of the lot, in my opinion, anyway.
So what about accessory buildings?
Yeah, you're allowed to have up to 500 square feet of accessory buildings right now, today, without any approval at all. You're allowed that by right today.
Detached?
Right.
Because
So
that's a relatively new
No.
thing, isn't it?
No.
Oh,
That's been
okay.
on the books a really long time. And we're not proposing to change the amount, only the way that you could use them as garage or accessory buildings.
But if you have the accessory building, do you also have to have the garage?
Well, it depends on exactly what you're required as far as covered parking. You have to have your required number of covered parking spaces, and then the rest of that 1,000 square feet can be used for accessory or more covered parking spaces if you want. Well, they never had to be separate buildings. See, this is the reason that I'm trying not to use the word combination, because that's a little bit ambiguous. You could always have, today, and ever since we've had this, you can have a single building that's a 500 square foot garage and a 500 square foot accessory building detached from your house. You can do that today. So that part hasn't changed.
As a 1,000 square foot building.
Correct. You still have a 1,000 square foot building, but the way we do this is weird. If you have a 1,000 square foot building, you can have a 2-car garage door on this side, but you can't have one on this side because that's another garage, and that's bigger than 500 square feet of garage, right? So now it would allow that.
This chart that you're showing right now, that's just existing, and the bottom line is what you're proposing.
Correct.
Everything above the bottom line is just what's existing right now.
Oh, well, no, not exactly. Sorry.
That's what I'm mixing.
Sorry. The part that's existing right now is these 6 boxes here. I don't think there's a way for me to draw a box around it, but, oops.
Moving forward at 1 acre, it changes after
Right
the 1
here.
acre designation.
The 1 acre, that part changes. You can see these two underlines, that changes. And then, but this part's the same.
So the garages in the 1 and 3 acre,
Oops, your microphone fell off.
the garages in the 1 and 3 acre and the existing building in the 1 and 3 acre are going up.
Well, yeah,
'Cause
yes.
They're gonna, the whole total is gonna climb to 1750 square feet.
From 1250 to 1750 if you're more than 3 acres, from 1250 to 1500 if you're between 1 and 3 acres.
So the garages and the accessory buildings will change.
Yeah, your mic might not be on. I don't know. Maybe it's on mute.
It's on now.
Okay.
I can hear it. So the garages and the accessory buildings will go up in the greater than 1 acre or greater than 3 acres.
Correct.
Okay, to 1,500 and 1,750 respectively.
That's what's proposed, yes. And this was in response to a request from the public.
Can I just ask one real question, going back to the garage and the livable space? So now the client has the opportunity to make that 1,000 square foot all garage if he wants to.
Yes,
So he doesn't have to have livable space,
correct.
but he
There's
has
a-
an option if he's. But he does have the option to have a maximum of 500 square feet of livable space and the rest is garage, and or he can make it all garage,
Correct.
or he can make it all livable space.
Or, no, we can't make it all livable
'Cause you
because
have
there's
to
a
have to be
500 square
covered
foot. But he could have 500 livable and 500 of unlivable, like workshop.
Okay, sorry, everyone talked at once about they can't have 1,000
Okay.
livable because,
Because that's one of the limitations, is there's a livable floor
Got
area
it.
max of 500 square feet.
Thank you.
But you could have, it's conceivable in one way that you could have 500 square foot livable and a 500 square foot workshop and 0 covered parking. I mean,
yes,
it's conceivable that that could happen.
yes.
So how does one deal with it at the 1750 mark, and that only 500 is livable space, but the rest is some kind of workshop or garage? How does the city deal with the noise issue? In other words, a lot of folks we see collect cars, so they want to have a nice big garage. That's where I'm sure some of this request has come from. But we also get neighbors in here going, no, they make noise, their lights are on all the time, et cetera, because they're working on their car, their motorbike, or whatever. How does the city deal with that issue?
We would look at it on an enforcement basis. So if somebody complained, we would look at some performance standards about noise. And we could look at the lighting ordinance as well, but generally we're talking about people being inside a building at nighttime.
I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that's the comments we're going to get from the public, so I'm
Well-
interested how you address that.
I mean, I'm just thinking about how we do it now, because there's nothing that would change, right? All this stuff is allowed. You can have a 500 square foot.
So if somebody complains about the noise, it goes back to zoning staff?
We would look at it initially.
Okay, moving on.
Let's move on to the there's a bunch of them. The first one is porches. As we were looking at those, porches came up because porches are an amenity that we've seen a number of people ask for. Right? And a lot of times these are on existing buildings that kind of have a flat front, and they want to kind of come out a little bit. Those need modifications. So we, staff are looking at what we could possibly do to help that happen. And so what Enzo proposes is to allow porches maximum 6 feet wide and 6 feet deep, to allow to encroach into the front setback, again, for new buildings, 3 feet, for existing buildings, 6 feet. And in the interior setback, the same amount as an existing building, but no closer than 2 feet. And then beyond that, the stairways that lead up to these porches can encroach as necessary, for their rise and run. But these would require design review approval. So when we took this to the Enzo Joint Committee and the Planning Commission, we had proposed 6 feet wide by 4 feet deep, but afterwards, after hearing some comments about maybe that wasn't big enough, we took another look at a bunch of photos of porches and such, and came up with this idea of 16 feet wide and 6 feet deep. So pilasters, that doesn't include the railing, you know, so on a craftsman house where you have a porch and you have a nice wooden railing with the posts that hold up the roof.
That's just walking space.
It's just the walking space, yeah. And then again, the stairs that you need to get up to it, because these usually happen on raised foundations, those can encroach further as much as needed. Next one is encroachments into setbacks. Again, detached equipment like air conditioning, water heaters, pool equipment, that sort of thing. These are proposed for residential zones to have a 10-foot setback, 10-foot front setback, 5-foot interior setback. For non-residential, 3-foot front and 5-foot interior if adjacent to a residential use or a zone. Now, these would be allowed by right. What the design boards could do is to allow even further encroachment for, if necessary, to deal with existing site constraints or to achieve superior aesthetic or environmental design. Design boards don't have to worry about noise and noise standards because staff looks at that. There's a 60 decibel limit at the property line. So it's we do this all the time. We're looking at the noise generation. We look at noise specs. We do a little calculation on the distance and that kind of thing. And if necessary, we can require sound analysis if people are proposing sound walls and stuff like that. So again, these encroachments would be allowed by right, but the design board could allow further encroachments if they found them necessary for existing site constraints or to achieve superior aesthetic or environmental design.
What about trash? There's no mention.
Okay, wait a minute.
Let's stop there. Can I go back just to, I want to touch on two things. One is the noise issue. Oftentimes we see that, and yes, we get a report that says it doesn't exceed, I think it's the 60 dB, decibel, et cetera. But again, we have a whole neighborhood that's not convinced, particularly if the sound goes up and then starts bouncing across the canyon or under the oak trees or whatever. So are we allowed as a board to tell the applicant we want a sound study?
I think you should refer that to the staff and let the staff deal with the noise. I don't think that the design boards want to get involved with that aspect of it.
Okay, but what happens is they come and they show it to us because we don't see much of this until it lands right here.
Right.
And so we have to make a call, and if we as a board are collectively uncomfortable about what we perceive as the potential sound issue, and we say, we really like you to go back and talk to staff, or staff, could you really look at this, that delays the applicant. Then the applicant's not happy, because now they got to come back for another meeting. So,
Well, another option that you would have,
Do that.
in my opinion, is to approve it with a condition that it meet the city's noise requirements. And then we'd have to check that during plan check to make sure that it really does. It's an option for you.
okay, and then is there a definition of superior aesthetic? Do we know what that really means? That's I'm assuming
That's-
something we're supposed to know.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Okay, but
You're the
you're
aesthetic
using
board.
that word in a printed document, so how do we explain to an audience
Maybe
what our decision is? Because I'm sure Denise's idea of superior aesthetics, maybe versus Joe or mine, is going to be different, right?
Well, actually,
Am I
when I'm
incorrect?
looking at Fred, maybe it would be superior aesthetics based on the project compatibility analysis
Over there.
that's written on the.
It all comes down to that, and that's the reason that we like having it at the design boards, because there are 6 plus of you,
Yeah,
right? And all your collective ideas about what's superior have to make itself into a motion that carries 4 votes, right? So that's how do I say this? It's your job. That's your job to
Yeah.
do that, right?
which I think is healthy.
Yes.
Well, I guess I'm just feeling like, well, what is the point of a setback at all anymore then? I mean, the whole idea to me of what a setback was to keep any activity that that people within a dwelling unit keep it away from the neighbors enough so that it will not bother the neighbors, you know, and it just seems like that's disappearing with this.
Well, yes and no. So remember when I started, I talked about what some of the goals are? Responsive to non-conforming situations. Like so many of the properties in town were
Yeah.
built before we had these standards for where do you put your garbage cans? Where do you put AC units, right? All this kind of stuff that we get modifications all the time for these types of like encroachments into the setback, right? So what we're trying to do is be responsive to those situations and allow what's something that seems reasonable as far as encroachments to, because we're not going to make people demo their house so they can put an AC unit that meets the setback,
Right.
right? They're going to get they would apply for a modification, but it's primarily an aesthetic and neighborhood compatibility issue. That's why we put it into the realm of the design boards.
I guess I'm thinking of properties that only have a 6-foot setback, you know, it's like, that isn't a whole lot of distance between houses when you look at it, you know, and so it just seems like it's opening up a can of worms to me, but.
No, I see what Denise is saying, because if you allow a covered 6-foot addition onto a house, just any house, that could have a lot of neighborhood impacts.
Exactly. That's why it needs review from the review board. We're not saying that it would get to happen by right.
Well,
We rely on the design boards to make these findings of compatibility before they approve some of these things. This whole thing rests on your the design boards, right, and your discretion and your knowledge of architecture and neighborhoods.
So if we, for example, if we have someone that wants to put a water heater and they have a 6-foot setback and the water heater takes 30 inches or whatever, and they want to put an enclosure around it, or we tell them they need to put an enclosure around it, can we, based on our understanding of the separation between the two properties, assuming the other side also has 6 feet, I think that's what Denise was referring to, can we basically say, no, we are not going to approve it in the setback? Based on our review of the project?
Well, okay, let's think of it a different way. Okay, if you look at this in the residential zone interior, we're allowed up to 5 feet. So let's say that the building is, I don't know, 5 feet 5 inches away from the property line, right? Or no, let's say it's 6 feet away, but they want to put a water heater, one of those on-demand water heaters. Oh, wait a minute, those are allowed. They want to put a water heater enclosure, and it's 30 inches, so that encroaches into the setback.
Right.
Right, and they want to put a water heater, and so if the water heater was at least 5 feet away, it'd be allowed by right. But let's say for some reason that the water heater itself would be 5 feet, but to put an enclosure around it would be 4 feet 6 inches away. But the design boards the single-family design board wanted that because that's a superior aesthetic solution. Then they could say, okay, well, it could be 4 feet 6.
But do we have the authority or the decision-making process to say, we don't want the water heater there, we want you to put it elsewhere?
Aesthetically, probably yes.
Yes, from an aesthetic standpoint and neighborhood compatibility, let's say, I mean, we would expect that the design boards would use the good neighbor guidelines, and a water heater may not be the best thing to be right opposite a bedroom window, right? So then you could say we think that this water heater should be put in a different spot along this wall.
Okay, so that's a finding that we'd have to be fairly definitive about, correct? In other words,
Yes.
we're asking you not to put it there, we're asking you to put it somewhere else, and the reason is X, Y, and Z.
Correct.
Okay.
Compatibility, neighborhood, good neighbor guidelines. Next one, electric vehicle supply equipment. City's trying to encourage electric vehicles. They need charging stations. Right now, a charging station that happens to be in a front setback needs a modification. We're saying that Enzo would allow these charging stations to be any place a parking lot's allowed, a legal parking space is allowed, but at least 10 feet from a front lot line, and that the design boards could let it be even closer if they wanted to. Next, trash cans and recycling cans. What we're proposing, Enzo, is in the front setback, up to 10 feet from the front lot line, no closer than 2 feet. Interior, 3-foot encroachment into the interior setback, no closer than 2 feet. Again, with restrictions only for existing development, right? That makes it clear that if you're proposing a brand-new development, you have to find a place for your trash outside your setback. But if your house was built or your apartment building was built without trash consideration back in the whenever, then you get some relief from that.
I have to comment on this one. Okay, I have a really good example of this. I lived on Brinkerhoff for some time, and I had a little deck that went right out of these two double doors from my living room, and that little deck kind of went right up to the property line. And the neighbors had their trash exactly up against that on that other side. So when I opened up my doors to get air in the summertime, their stinky trash was in my front room, literally. So I turned them in to the city because I tried to talk to them and they were not going to cooperate. And so they were forced to move their trash out of the setback. I really, really think that that's an important issue. And just having had personal experience with it, I would be absolutely dismayed if somebody put their trash within 2 feet of the property line. Really.
So again, if given that example, how do we as a board, because there's no, unlike noise, which theoretically you can tie to a decibel level or something, how do we deal with odor? I mean, is there a gauge that says your trash has got more odor than the next guy's trash? How do we deal with that?
The Enzo contains performance standards by which we would respond to complaints about odors, right? So again, that's something we would handle on a complaint basis, that the same way that we would now.
Because it says you can't put a top on it.
Right,
Okay.
not in the setbacks, yeah.
You can't put a
Now,
top.
do you guys think that we should allow them to be roofed?
I think they shouldn't be there at all. Personally, I think it's a big mistake. You're going to have so many complaints on this one.
I think so too. I think.
Real bad idea.
I know, and especially in proper Santa Barbara, there is so many places that, I mean, trash is a new thing, basically, where they're required to put it. And so many houses in Santa Barbara, you can't
would be a special thing.
Comes to the full board.
I think that where there would be a, there's the AR
We
below
haven't-
85.
We haven't thought who looks at it yet.
Yeah.
And then one of the things about this, we see this quite often, and we have frustrated applicants where, why can't I put a door or window, and why do I have to go get a modification? So I think, in that respect, I think that starts to address a lot of that stuff we see, where we're looking at it going, it looks just fine, we don't know why you have to go get a modification.
Right.
So I think in that respect, this is probably a huge help, particularly on those properties that we see on the Mesa that were all built as tract houses in the 1960s, and then they got overlaid with zoning changes that made every corner of their house non-compliant. So I think this is kind of a plus.
And again, the findings are compatibility and good neighbor guidelines, and those are the ones that say windows shouldn't face each other,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Fences and hedges, okay, so not in the not too distant past, 4 years or so, the city changed the fence and hedge height requirements. And basically, what happened was, the council gave staff the authority to grant these minor zoning exceptions to allow an additional 4 feet over what's allowed. So on the interior fences and hedges, the requirement is 8-foot max. For the minor zoning exception, you can go up to 12 feet. In the front, fences and walls are 3.5 feet, and the minor zoning exception allows you to go up to 7.5 feet. In the front, hedges are 8 feet, and hedges could go up to 12 feet, right? You can add 4 feet with the minor zoning exception. And that's been delegated to staff. But what I found personally, because I was doing these, is that almost all of these go to the design boards, and I wait to see what the design board says about compatibility before I make a call. It's primarily an aesthetic issue. And so we propose that we transfer the authority to the design boards with a notice. And the notice public hearing, we're still discussing that. Actually, we met with Jaime Limon this afternoon, and he thought that wouldn't be required, but there would be findings required. So we're still a little bit up in the air about whether that'd be a notice public hearing or not. Right now, at the staff level, it is not a notice public hearing. However, on interior fences, we do require that they get the approval of the affected neighbor, before it can go forward.
So am I interpreting correctly? I think I reported out at our subcommittee that 12 feet or above then would come to
No,
this board.
8 to 12 would come to the board.
So above 12 would not come to the board.
Above 12 needs a modification
Okay.
by the staff hearing officer.
Okay, that's where I was confused, because the
Right.
way I read it, it looked like it was coming
So
here.
let's say just the interior for a second. 8 feet is allowed, up to 12 with the minor zoning exception, currently by staff, proposed by the design boards, and beyond 12 is a modification. Right now, anything over, well, no, that's not true.
I thought there was a thing where agreement with the neighbor, you could go up higher,
12.
up to 12.
That's how you
right.
get up to 12 if
Yeah.
you have agreement with the neighbor. That's how you go from 8 to 12.
I see. So you still have to do that. That's still in
And
force.
and above 12, it would have to go to the staff hearing officer, but doesn't that process also send them to the design review boards?
Maybe, it depends. If it's less than 17, then it probably wouldn't go. If it was just a standalone fence or hedge, then it probably wouldn't go. Usually we see these because they're in conjunction with other development.
Okay.
Just one clarification. You used the word, I wasn't sure where it went, the minor, something was a,
Minor zoning exception.
yeah, what is, what,
This is what I'm talking about. This is the ability of the design board to grant for an additional
Okay.
4 feet of,
the design board has
Yes.
the authority, I get it.
some things need a minor zoning exception, some things just need review by the design boards. So Chair Sweeney, we're running a little bit behind.
We're scheduled our
Right,
next
right on
items.
time.
Is the next item. There's
4:10.
kind of a lot to go through.
Maybe we should continue it to the next meeting?
Can we continue at the next meeting? We have a very long agenda. We're
Yeah,
late
why don't
in
we
the
do
meeting.
that?
Okay,
We'll try to get on 2 weeks from, 2 weeks in a day? No, 2 weeks from today, right?
okay, okay.
Okay.
Right, thank you. And
Thank you
then
very
maybe
much.
in the interim, you can look at the rest of this, and some of this you've answered, but some, there's still probably some outstanding questions. Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to item number 2, 246 San Clemente. This is here for final approval. Project must comply with the Planning Commission Resolution number 028-16 and was last reviewed on October 31st, 2016. Let's get that in.
Yeah, I know. Dehydrated.
Welcome, if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Jeremy and Carolyn Jewell, homeowners.
Okay. Mr. Miller, could you read what we did last time?
Okay, the board had positive comments regarding the project's consistency in appearance, neighborhood compatibility, quality of architecture, materials, and the board finds that the proposed window changes, addition of sliders, removal of the pop-out element, removal of the tool shed that eliminated the height infringement, roof changes, and the addition of permeable pavers acceptable. Provide a dimension correction on the plans to the windows on the south elevation. Provide a color board. Provide a photograph of the proposed roofing materials. Provide a cut sheet of proposed lighting fixtures and locations. Provide an electrical plan. Provide a roof plan. Provide downspout locations, gutters, and other further details on the full building plans. Provide other complete requirements per the final approval checklist provided by the planning counter. Action taken by James, seconded by Woolery. Action carried.
Yep. So if you could share with us how you addressed comments.
So I guess we'll just go through them in order to try. So we first checked the dimensions of the south elevations, the windows. We were concerned that they'd be a little bit low. One window is existing and one is proposed. Sorry.
That's okay.
One is existing, one's proposed, and we did assure with our planner and our designer that those were corrected, and that was, where are they?
These
These ones,
right here,
Yes.
okay?
So the gray,
Okay.
yeah. So those are definitely above the height of a desk height. That was the first item. The next was providing color board, which you should have. It's the same as the existing colors of the house.
Yep.
And provide a photograph of the proposed roofing materials. That's also included on the color board. It's also the same as the existing roof. The cut sheet for the light fixture you should have as well. There's only one exterior light
Is that on the
fixture.
drawings or on a?
It's on the last
separate-
page.
Oh, it is?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It is right here.
Okay.
Provide an electrical plan, including exterior fixtures, and that should be somewhere on here. I'm not sure exactly where.
Down showing
Yeah.
on the elevations, which is primarily what we want to look at, okay?
And provide a roof plan, which all of the gutters, and not gutters and downspouts as well, which all of the, those were added.
Okay,
And and then there was also architectural details. I don't know if that was on here, but eaves details, that's also on the last page.
okay,
Asked to include, and that's these.
there, here. Okay, anything else?
The only other minor change that we did make that I just feel I should point out is that there was a door out the back from the laundry room that was changed from a door to a window.
Okay.
And that's on the first floor in the back of the house.
Okay, anything else?
That should be it.
Good. All right, before we go to questions of board, do we have any public comment, any written comment, Katie?
No, Mr. Chair.
Anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. The applicant's here for final approval.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair.
No questions.
Anyone have comments?
I think they did due diligence. I can support the project.
Any other comments? Okay, if we have no other comments, then the chair would look for a motion for approval, for final approval.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to give this project design and final approval with the final comments.
We already had PDA.
What are we doing?
Just fine.
Final.
Just fine.
Oh, I'm giving the granted final approval with the with the following findings. Consistency of appearance is appropriate, compatible to the neighborhood is to the site and the neighborhood. Quality of architecture materials have been used, and good neighbor guidelines have been followed.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion to the motion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. This project will have a 10-day appeal period, and you're able to then go to the building department.
Would I be able to ask one question?
Yes.
Would that be okay? It's just an opinion, really. When we went to the Planning Commission, it was suggested by Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Higgins that we may be able to keep our tool shed that is existing. It is being taken out essentially because we are going to cause we would cause the need for an open yard modification because of the 20 by 20 rule that's currently existing,
Right.
not because this is less than 1250 square feet, but the 20 by 20 because of the angled lot line. We would need to come and apply for the modification. The question that I would have would be that in general, having seen the site, would you guys think that you'd be able to support us keeping that shed? There was some question about it at a time that we were going to make it smaller and it was going to look funny, but the question would it be supportable from a design standpoint for us to keep that existing shed? That'll kind of help determine whether we're going to go through an appeal for a modification for them to allow us to keep it or not. And we can address that when we come back, I guess, if we needed to, but I just kind of wanted to get an idea.
I guess I would be able to support if I had more information, like what it looked like.
Right. I think it's been so long since you guys saw it because this is like our 4th time here, but you did see it on a site visit a long time ago, but it's just it's a standard plate height, 10 by 20 foot shed.
I think
Same
we have
as
to
the
see
house.
it because it's a small lot. Yeah.
You're asking for us to make a decision, and
Oh, no, well, you have seen it, but it's been months since anyone saw it because like I said, we've been back a few times. But if you don't recall it, then we'll just
It
work
seems
on it
to
then.
me, if you, given its location, you see what's going on here, where it
The
is.
interior,
It's the modification is triggered because of this, it's in the setback things, and also because of this thing. But if you've gone out and looked at this house, my thought is that it's probably could be supportable, but I agree with all of you. We need to
We have
actually
to
see
see
it.
it.
We need to
Okay.
see the photographs. But also what might help is if you're going to alter or add landscaping around it. That might be, that's
Okay.
always a plus when
if
you're
you,
out building.
if you ask to keep it, you may run into the city that says, oh, it is in the setback, so you're going to run into more
A
problems.
setback and an open yard modification possibly, although I don't know if we'd
But it
need a
has to-
setback or not, if we're not going to change, we're not going to change it, so I don't know if we'd need a setback
I
modification or
think you
not, but,
probably will, yeah.
so,
So you need a mod there and there.
and an open yard, unless the
Right.
Enzo
So
changes
that
by
all
the time we're.
costs you-
That's going to cost you money. You might want to do a
First
cost
one-
analysis.
yeah, one costs you 1,000, the other one costs you 500, and I don't know what this costs you.
Okay,
So you may want to think about that.
so it
Okay,
might
but
come down.
But short of that, you do have approval for this set of plans.
Great, thank you, sorry for thanks for your time.
You want to take these?
You can keep 2 of the set.
Oh,
they're
great,
just
thank
one,
you.
so you guys can take these.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 2, 246 San Clemente.
237, no, 240, sorry. No,
No,
not
you
item
mean
3.
237.
Item 3.
Oh, sorry.
237 San Clemente.
Yeah.
It's a busy street.
Yeah, might as well stick around.
Okay, so this is here for project design approval, and it needs to needs to meet requirements of Tier 3 stormwater management compliance and coastal review. You can introduce yourself, please.
My name is Tom Oxner, project architect. A little ahead here, so I'm hoping to have my landscape architect show up as
Okay.
well, just in time.
Okay.
So I believe there were some comments from the last meeting.
Yeah, let's
course.
go ahead and read our comments.
Number one, the board finds the style of architecture acceptable and is willing to consider the accessory structure over the garage acceptable, provided there is a reduction in the height for neighborhood compatibility with possibly some landscaping. Number two, study the front patio and reduce. Number three, provide an accurate FAR. Number four, provide a landscape plan. Number five, study the height of the overall house for a reduction to an 85% FAR and reduced height. Number six, restudy the deck off the second floor master bedroom for a possible reduction in size or removal. Number seven, remove the proposed spiral staircase for neighborhood compatibility. Action taken by Bernstein, seconded by Motisha. Action was carried.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to hand that back to Katie. That was the previous one. So you want to start and show us how you responded to some of those?
Okay, so let's go to the floor. Well, let's see, I'm going to leave the site plan here for Chuck when he gets here. What I'll do is I'll start with the site plan, I suppose. So what, in terms of the site plan, first of all, the Tier 3 is not triggered because we've got less than the required impervious material that would trigger Tier 3. So we're actually a Tier 2.
So it's
and
a tier-
Chuck can speak more to that.
Okay.
In terms of the front porch has been brought in and the house has been brought a little bit back from the front, but in addition, the porch has been dropped and the guardrail around it is only 2 feet high. And I know that this may kind of fall into the category of what the discussion was about the front porch, but this is a complying porch. It sits low enough and it doesn't have encroachments that would not qualify it as a structure. Let's see, in terms of, we've got some grading that will go over here in the rear. The rear spiral has been turned into a conventional stairway. We can go over that in the elevations. I did drop the accessory structure down, so that was dropped down slightly. I think the largest changes were, let's go to the upstairs. We reduced the deck, the second story deck, brought it in from the south so that it's more of a size that really conforms with the master. Again, we've got conventional stairs on the back of the house. The square footage, we went and double-checked them, the FARs and the numbers. That's really a staff thing, and the FARs do add up, and they're 85%. I'm happy to go over to whatever misunderstanding there might be along those lines.
Did that include the accessory
Yes,
structure?
it does. Right. So this is one of those accessory structures that combines is less than 1,000. The garage is 500, and the second story is much smaller than the 500. That square footage went into the main house to get to the 85%. So the second story was redesigned significantly on the accessory structure as well as the roof line over the master. And I've got the old elevations so we can compare them. It might be a little clearer. But if we start with the front elevation, we brought the balcony. The balcony used to run all the way out to here. It's been brought in, and this hip's been introduced to create a little bit more symmetry. I think there was a comment about the size of the porch, the symmetry, and maybe how far the first floor porch was encroaching forward. But I think the board consolidated their comments to really reducing the second floor. The height of the structure went down slightly because of the redesign of the roof and because I set the building down lower and I set the accessory structure down lower, mainly to achieve both the reduction of height comment, but also to achieve a porch and finished floor that could flow out and still not be in violation of what is considered to be a structure out in the front yard. If you step up higher than 10 inches, then it's, doesn't qualify as a patio in the front yard setback. So, let's see, there we go. In terms of the rear elevation, we've got the stairway, and let's see, a lot of the massing really stayed the same around the existing house. In terms of the accessory structure, the front was redesigned to create more of a simplified roof form. It might help if I pull out the previous elevations if we want. I can go over that. But again, the accessory structure has been lowered as well. Let's see, what we're proposing to do now is, with the development of the landscape plan, we've got the rear yard slopes back to an easement area, and we're looking to pull out about 120 yards of earth to create a usable space that flows out off of the rear of the structure, and I know Chuck can speak more to that. Do you want to use this one? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I brought a set. Oh, is this is with Laura? Okay, sure. Yeah. I thought we were at a different project, sure. So we have the house here, of course, and then with the garage in back, we've got to get a driveway back. So these are pavers contained with the concrete.
Probably
Maybe
the
the
other
other
one.
Since it's
Okay, sure.
Take your pick.
there you go.
And it's got a concrete grade beam to contain these squares of pavers. And then we've got, it's very simple. We've got a seat wall here. So this is, if this is +0, this is +18, and then this is about +6, as this section shows. So there's the seat wall. The building to be got into the place. And then up front, it's pretty simple, a couple of olives and the city street tree, and a pretty simple austere succulent type planting. Yeah. Okay. And so roots to the trees. Because of the
Okay, can you explain how is that?
Okay, so the figure for a tree, this isn't a hillside, so the figure for a tree is
500 square feet of new and replaced.
right. So if you look at the existing house and the existing driveway, and you offset that with the proposed footprint of the two buildings, we're not increasing the overall improvement of material by 500.
It's new or replaced. 500 square feet of new or replaced impervious surface. We're proposing a new 753 square foot garage, right?
It's not a net increase of 500.
It's new though, right?
Well, but there's existing, if you look at the existing coverage of the site.
Okay, I'll just double check later.
The net gain is not in excess of 500 square feet. This is the existing structure, and there's an existing driveway. So because if you look at the proposed footprint, it's almost the same. Plus, we're eliminating the existing driveway, which is impervious. So we're adding a footprint of a building that's about.
I'll check, but I don't know that it's going to count because it's replaced either way, but I'll double check.
We'll take a look at that. Anything else? Okay. Before we go to questions for the board, did you get any communication? Anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair closed public comment. Then back to the board for questions. Who has questions? No? Any questions?
This is about the accessory building. So underneath is a two-car garage, which we have a picture of, and it says the size of that is 280 square feet. Is that correct?
That sounds like that's the second floor, yeah.
Right.
That's the
It
second
just,
floor.
it looks, to me, it looks a lot bigger than with that deck.
Let's go to the floor plan. So it has a two-car garage and then it has a little laundry room, so that kind of makes the first floor bigger than the average garage because it's got this little laundry room. The garage is what's required to be by the building code, correct? Yeah, so by city building, the two-car garage would have to be that big. Only about 20 floor minimum. Minimum, yeah. So this is the laundry room for that garage.
Okay, and I think we talked about how do the cars, do they go in and then they back out? Or is
Right.
there,
So it's about 20 feet is what you want, and so they back out, and then they
okay,
the front porch is part of porch, even though it's over 10 feet, or 10 inches, what part of that is covered? Is that a roof line that's on covered? Yeah, so there's no structure outside the front yard setback, and the only thing that projects into the front yard setback is just the overhang. If you look at, there's a little overhang there, or just that little bit of overhang? So there's a roof.
Mr. Chair, just one more question about the accessory building. Just want to know, are there two exterior staircases, or does this have an internal?
No, there's no internal access, there's only an
So
exterior.
there's a staircase there and another staircase to the house?
On the main house.
Right, so there's two staircases outside in the back.
Any other questions? I just have a couple of small, so you said you're gonna take soil out and move it out. So is that going off the site? Going off the site. Okay. And, there is a, landscape plan. Last sheet. There is a dash line here. What is that mean? Oh, you have to put a dog, temporary, like a clean dog line. And then you describe what I would advise you not to say that. Yeah. Hey, we have one question just procedurally. If we choose, if the board chooses to give it project design approval, because that's what it's here for to go, the resolution of whether it's tier 2 or tier 3 is not really.
That can be decided before they come back to final.
Okay, so it's not depending on our decision about project design. Okay. All right, so there's no further questions? Oh, yes, go ahead.
If there's a new date here, do we have a picture with it?
I don't have any elevation developed yet. But I was going to point out that it's nicely set back, so it's much down in there. So it's not obnoxious. And then just in general, when you do come back, because I don't think we've had a color board yet, and your renderings kind of show a gray house. Yeah, that's pretty close to the color scheme that the owners had liked. And the only reason I'm asking is I know in the backyard, they have a nice stucco wall. Right now it's kind of a gold, tan, orange color. I'm assuming that's when I'll get repainted or something. Okay. Other questions? If not, let's go to comments. The applicant's requesting project design approval. Mr. Chair, I can support the design. The only comments I have is that the gray color be a warm gray, rather than an industrial gray. But otherwise, I feel that you've answered all our questions and requests, and I think it's a well-designed and balanced house. I also do not have an issue that there's two exterior staircases in the backyard, as I don't think those cause a visual impact or cause any size or pulse and scale issues. Other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll just respond to Brian's comments because I do want to hear from the rest of the board about that also. I appreciate that they have made some changes and responded to most of what we asked for, except that one of the things we asked was that we didn't say we were in agreement to approve an accessory structure on top of the garage. We said we'd look at it, and so now we're looking at it. And I'm just wondering what my fellow board members think about the combination of all the decking and the size of that perceived two-car garage and then the building on. It just seems to me it's a lot of building for that lot.
Other comments? I remember this. I remember a deck was in the front too. And the deck in the front we removed. Yeah, that was that's been released. So comment. Big lot.
It's an 8,000 square foot.
Hello, I'm feeling okay about the accessory structure and that you have responded to our comments from previous meeting, and I'd be able to support it. So I can also support the accessory structure. It's an exercise room. It's really small, not a big area, and it doesn't look to me like it could be turned into a living area at all. So I can support it.
Yeah. Please.
I was looking at Michelle's plan set comments, and one of her comments here was that you had to revise you had to relocate or remove the closet within the detached accessory building. The closet will not be located adjacent to the half bath because it has the potential to become more than a half bath.
I would tend to say that the configuration of the bathroom, how do you make that I don't, we're talking about this closet right here.
Yes.
Okay, so if you remove that from the plan, you satisfied.
Relocate it from there.
Okay. So, but that's internal to the plan and not probably subject for aesthetic review.
She also wanted you to dimension that out to say that it was no larger than 3 by 7. It's the maximum size. The bathroom. Oh, the bathroom.
So those are technical. There is a half bath up there. Any other comment? I think, yes, the applicant has addressed all of our requests. They reduced the front balcony. One of the, if you go out to that street and go out to that neighborhood, and I've done that now, we've had several projects on the street, including the one just that we just looked at. So I've spent some time out there walking around, and in this particular case, the owner actually happened to be present today. I was walking and invited me to walk into the site and into his backyard. And so, from the get-go, I kind of have a fairly good understanding of the site. So I'm not overly concerned about the accessory building and the rear room on top. And yes, could it be made into a one unit? We see this stuff all the time, and guess what? People are going to rent stuff. But, you can only do so much. But I don't think it's overly, from the size scale and bulk issue, all three of those, the size is not outlandish, the scale is appropriate, and the bulk is pushed the whole thing to the center. And sometimes the big challenge we have, even from the back, this is the quality. The neighbor to the west is higher, and has a higher lot, and they step up on that other side, up the hill. I do, in fact, like the reconfiguration of this balcony. One of the challenges we've had on that street, we've got a couple of houses to either side of us and across the street that are 2 stories.
relatively small. I'm not overly concerned about the deck on the backside because it is to the backyard. It's a considerable distance away from the back property line. And we, in fact, requested that the applicant reconsider the spiral staircase because we felt it wasn't appropriate to the architecture or to the architectural language being presented, so they have done that. So I think that's appropriate. And it does, in fact, reflect in on the little staircase that takes you up to the room over the garage. So I'm comfortable that all those things have been addressed. I do have, just dawned on me, I have one question down here. So your top of porch, so to speak, is right here. So this is the so that alleviates you from the code issue of dropping off more than 18 inches?
10 inches
Or 10
is the
inches.
height.
So that's the
maximum.
10 inches, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the drop-off thing goes away in terms of the building code, because you're less than 18 inches.
It would be an allowed encroachment in the front yard if that deck is 10 inches or less.
And I agree with my colleague about the color of gray is going to be fairly important. There's some really nice grays out there, and I hope you keep it to the warm side. I think those are my comments. Okay, any further comments? If they're not, then the chair would entertain a motion. The applicant is requesting project design approval.
I'll make a motion.
Wait, did we know what the roof material was?
We talked about that last
I
time.
can't remember.
It's composition.
It's a composition
Oh, okay,
roof.
thank you.
And you'll be coming back with a color board when you,
Absolutely.
okay?
I'd like board would like to give this project design approval to return to us.
You can
with our-
decide
or
either
con-
full
to cons-
board or consent
To
calendar.
consent with the following comments. But first, I'd like to say why we are approving the project. We appreciate that you have responded to our request to drop the design. We felt more compatible with the neighborhood. And when you do come back, we'd like to see your color board with the gray.
Yeah,
Does
so
that
you'll need to
count
have that
on
dimension.
this?
You don't have to
All right.
put that in your motion.
Probably
And
not
and that
relevant.
the size, bulk, and scale of the project meets with our requirements.
Can you make the MPO findings for me?
Yes, I
Thank you.
can make the MPO findings that this project is compatible with the neighborhood. It has consistency in appearance, uses quality architecture and materials, and follows the good neighbor guidelines.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay, is there further discussion to the motion?
Yes, could you put in your motion to require a color board?
Second. She
Oh,
already
you
did.
already. Okay, thanks.
So that's
Sorry,
in the
missed
motion?
that.
Okay. Everyone clear in the motion? Any further comments? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. This has a 10-day appeal period. Okay? See you at consent calendar.
We're 15 minutes ahead.
I'll give you this copy and I'll fill that out.
Are you?
Mr. Thompson's off to see Clemson and Alabama.
Cool.
Keep me posted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
since we have a little break, I have a quick question regarding our motion worksheet. What's
Yes.
the difference between deny project with prejudice, deny without prejudice? What's the difference?
Oh, you want,
I think
you want to
that,
turn it, you want to
and
turn
we
it
should,
on. You
I'll
want to turn it to
inquire
on.
of the
Looks
city
like
of
it's
attorney
already on.
or staff to help us with this. But my understanding is with prejudice means you really have a problem and you're a big concern. Without prejudice means that's technically You're not approving it, but you don't have a specific axe to grind.
Okay, that's clear as mud.
And it's clear as mud, but maybe Katie can bring us an answer back at the next
Well, it
meeting.
looks like it's already.
Well,
that way.
I just noticed on the worksheet, deny the project design with prejudice, without prejudice. I'm just curious to know what the difference is between prejudice and not without prejudice.
It's not turning.
Okay, I'll have to.
Just curious.
It's a legal thing. The chair does not recognize the next applicant is present, so let's take a 10-minute break. Kathleen, can we come back to order? Are we all set to come back to order?
139 Lower Media?
Okay. Microphone back on. Okay. The chair will reconvene the Monday, January 9th, 2017 Single Family Design Board for item number 4, 139 Loma Media Road. This is here for comments only. Project requires staff hearing officer review for zoning modification request. If you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jeff Yardy with Appleton Partners.
Paul Rubison with Appleton Partners.
And Ken Minot.
Welcome. Mr. Miller, do we have comments from our last?
Yes, we do. Number 1, provide a landscape plan. Number 2, consider an alternative to the ease case as it is too small. Consider Catalina cherry plantings as the fire department may not allow an acacia tree. You guys know what that means, right?
Yes, but you're not on, so stay it over.
Sorry about that. The proposed long balcony dominates the view. Study to reconfigure to break it up. Number 4, provide window details. Board comment, staff to research into whether the windows are approved the way they are presented on the plans.
Okay, thank you. If you could share with us how you address those comments. Changes you would make.
So seems like since most of the comments were about the landscape plan, we should start there. So Jeff is our landscape architect. Would you like this exhibit as well?
Okay. So basically,
You want to start with the front yard where we've removed the paving going into the entry?
yes.
Are your mics on?
There you go. All right.
All right. So the existing front yard is just, it's just a slab of concrete paving. So we're going to break that up and do kind of a gravel garden, a formal hedge garden with citrus trees. And we're going to use some ficus for hedging along the street, maintain it at about 5 feet, have a garden gate at the front, and just real simple and clean looking. And then for the hillside on the other side,
Yeah, so on the back side of the house, this is a view down at the street below. So you can actually see in the renderings, what we're doing is a lot of landscaping to soften that elevation.
we want to use Magnolia grandiflora in the open spot right here as a screen. And then the clients wanted to have just kind of succulent landscape going down, but we've also used lemonade berry to kind of give us a little bit of variety and height.
All the things are off.
Uh-oh. You're on for pizza.
Technical.
The TVs are off.
TV went away, or is it on? Okay, they'll get that fixed while we're reviewing.
Okay.
So, other things.
Anything else you want to point out on landscaping, or should we move on to the
I think we
windows?
can move on.
Okay, so if we move to the extra elevations. So this is the existing residence. We're not increasing the footprint. What we're doing is making improvements to the existing structure, and we're changing materials. And we are going to replace the windows. We're going to put in dual plane glazing and adding some more detail to the exteriors. And what we're going to do is we're using Sierra Pacific windows. So this is the window system. It was requested that we bring in an exhibit showing the style of the windows that we're proposing.
Okay.
And also, we went ahead and we did a couple of renderings of the elevations showing what the landscape is also going to do to soften this. Let's see, I think actually that rear elevation got folded, or the photo got folded into the set.
About adding the lattice
There it is.
down here.
Yeah, so we're also going to add lattice around the structure for the deck here.
And then adding the board and bat.
Right, and the board and bat starts, there is a certain degree on the front, and we're going to extend that around the side and continue it to this bay back here, as well as on the bottom, to, again, to help break up the rear facade.
Are these skylights or what?
Yes, those are the existing
new, aren't
skylights.
these new? These
They're all
four?
existing.
They're existing,
All of them are existing?
yes,
Right.
yeah.
It's they were put in by the previous owner without permits, and so it's part of the,
No, ZIR.
yep, exactly. Okay, anything else that you present?
No, that's everything that we had covered last time, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, before we go to questions of the board and comments, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any written communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Can no one come forward? The chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
I do. To Jeff, have you used that ficus a lot?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah, I mean,
So
it's,
what does green gem top out at as far as height?
it can grow really high.
Yeah, it's a tree,
but,
right?
yeah, but
Macrocarpa.
we're gonna keep it clean and short at about 5 feet.
I guess the big concern with any ficus is the invasive root system. It's a plant for me that's on my do not use list just for that reason alone, you know. They do have, it's like the Morton Bay fig tree, basically, you know.
Yeah, it is.
Site
It'll
plan.
climb right out of the ground eventually.
It's a concrete jungle over there, so.
Is it? So it's gonna be
Yeah,
contained, okay.
it's gonna be like it's in a planter, concrete planter.
Well, that's better, then it probably won't go anywhere, huh?
But it might create a maintenance problem if.
Well, it's gonna lift
if,
concrete is what it'll do.
It's gonna grow so fast and you're gonna
It's
have to
gonna-
be hedging it
they're
once a
known-
month.
Yeah, they're known to lift concrete.
Right.
I've had a lot of it removed and on jobs just
Yeah,
because of the invasive
it'll
roots.
break through
Ficus or,
center of the
or what
earth.
ate Angkor Wat, you know?
Yeah, you know, I don't think it will. I've used this on East Valley Road, and it's just a nice, clean.
You know, it's so similar to Carolina cherry, though. It's almost the same leaf. It's just Carolina cherry is darker than the ficus, and non-invasive. I was just hoping way less of an issue for the concrete. But you know, I mean, I'm concerned for you, especially if you have a lot of concrete around and paving. But,
Yeah, we're willing to work with you on that
okay.
item.
I'm just it's a
I don't think the
suggestion.
client had a strong preference one way or the other. They just didn't want certain plants. or
Yeah, they
certain-
just wanted it cleaner than the bay laurel. You know,
Yeah.
that was the cleanest
Well,
one.
yeah, the cherry is very clean. It's actually looks almost exactly the same, only darker leaf. You know, it's I've seen it. A neighbor on one of my projects in Hope Ranch, my client had it, and then they had the bridle path behind, and the next people had the ficus hedge, and you could just see the difference hardly at all, except for the color. It was,
I'm sure they would be open to that.
yeah, it's a really good plant, and it gets tall enough and easy to.
I think they'd be willing to
Just,
switch
it
to
just
that.
will, it'll save you some grief in the future.
Good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, and Joe, you had a question.
Yeah, is that a horizontal line? Is that a wall there? Right here in front?
No,
What
that's
is
the
this?
hedge.
That's the hedge.
Oh, that's a hedge?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're talking
Where is
about.
that on?
Where
where's
is it?
that on the
You have a gate,
On the side.
oh, just in the
He's at
end.
the front. But
Because
it's
you
just
do have
kinda
a
front
fence,
from the
you have a
garage.
fence on each side of the gate.
Very last sheet.
Right there, right there.
It's just a garden gate right here.
Off the
So it'd
driveway?
just be
So
two,
it's just
it's
two
just a
pallets.
little arbor, yeah.
And then it's hedge. Is that hedge,
Yeah,
where's,
that's hedge.
These are hedge elements.
Yes,
right.
correct.
right
Yeah.
out into the, I mean, there is a,
Yeah, I think you're gonna have to have this reviewed by transportation, because I'm
Yeah,
almost certain you can't put that into the
I
right of
mean,
way.
there is
You'll have to
there
do
is
that.
Yeah,
there is a
it's the
flow of,
existing, yeah, there's an existing road line there.
well, it's not even a road line, there is, I mean, all the way, both sides of that street, all the way down, there's a
Yeah.
river, I mean, what do they call them? A
Swale.
swale on, thank you.
Yeah,
There's a
so-
swale on both sides.
This particular one, they've kind of extended the road right into the drive.
Exactly, but the
Yes.
point is you need to have transportation review this.
Yes.
Because it's been our experience, they will not allow you to plant anything.
Because
in
this
that
is your property
road-
line, isn't
road
it?
right- And the road right away. That hedge will have to be back of this line, so it'll have to be back.
Well,
here.
yeah, that remains to be seen, because.
The other part of the question that I have is if you do have that hedge, you're limited to the height, particularly in the triangle right here. You are under the new hedge ordinance, as I understand it, you're allowed this hedge to go to 8 feet if you want, but you do need to do the safety triangle. So
Right.
this probably needs, all of this needs reviewed by Transportation and Public Works.
Yeah.
The tree is probably, is that an existing
And the
tree?
tree, this is existing, but that one is new, correct?
Correct.
Well, there,
That-
I mean,
that-
it's not there.
Yeah, so you may, no, it's this tree. right
We're looking at this, we're looking at this.
Yeah,
That's in the view.
So
to the-
that's existing tree, that's not
Roof
on here.
entry
Yeah.
canopy.
So you probably really need to think about where that gets planted.
Yep.
So, other questions? Courtney, did you have questions?
I did, so is the fireplace, is there no chimney?
That was taken off.
It's off, okay. Yeah, I'll just ask, what is the roof entry canopy?
Oh, it's over this front door here. So actually, if you look, you can see it in this rendering right here.
Okay, I understand, thank
That's
you.
gonna, that's sitting out beyond the house.
It's cantilevered off of the
Yeah.
existing roof.
So we can show you in the roof plan.
And the elevation right there.
Yeah.
This is right
It's
Yeah.
that right there.
There you
yeah.
go.
It's got
Kicker.
a kicker brace.
So it's sitting out this far.
Yeah.
Well, it's proposed, it's down there.
That's existing.
This appears to be kickers, but it doesn't show in this elevation. Probably isn't.
Well, that's
This one you're saying.
Yeah,
those are
it's a
those two.
kicker brace there. Probably the lower one there.
Probably
Mitch.
like that. or
Let me see the existing, right there.
oh, yeah. This one
There's
right here.
nothing
Yeah.
there now.
There's so many of these.
In other words, you've got nothing there now, and you're adding everything,
Yeah, it's just a little California frame there.
Yeah, oh, it's actually back here. this one.
Yeah, there it is. on the-
It's this right here is what we're adding.
so you're adding just a roof.
Yeah.
Just a roof.
Just a roof.
Roof, and a little
Just a
kicker
roof
that
over
holds
the
it out
front door, over that,
Yeah.
that's the front door.
Yeah.
You're adding, I guess that's the plane of the front of the house right there.
No, that's the plane of there's two things going on. That garage plane is out in front of this one.
Oh, yes, right, okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
So that's the garage plane. This is back. I don't quite understand that, but it's more or less, they're gonna,
Yeah, you've got the roof overhang on this side, and then this comes and frames off of
Are we
that.
allowed to come, I mean, if that's the setback for the house right there, which is the garage, in the garage,
well,
are
but
we
they have to
allowed to?
go, they have to go to, for modification,
Yeah.
and that was one of my questions. Go back to the site plan.
It's all in the front yard setback.
See, this is one of the,
Yeah.
when they did that overlay we keep talking about in 1975, okay, they made this lot basically not buildable.
Oh,
because
there
there's the
it
30
is, yeah.
There's a street here and a street here, so the zoning is 30 feet back, so it puts the whole house virtually the
For
whole
thin-
house.
for thin people.
Including
people.
changing the windows.
Yeah. So they have to get a
I have one of
modification for
those.
here and here. and
Amazing.
here. Okay? Yeah. That's a result of laying down
Yeah.
a zoning modification.
Yeah,
So-
I have one question real quick. Yeah, you said consider an alternative to the, wait, no. The proposed long balcony dominates the view, study the reconfigure to break it up, but I don't see any proposed long balcony.
Well, what we did is the balcony being expanded above is to give them more space up there.
Oh, I see.
So what we did is we enclosed the lattice and, So we thought that in 3 dimensions, by enclosing that, that will start breaking up that elevation, because right now it looks very flat.
So one of my questions, on the lattice, this looks like very large lattice. What are you anticipating this material to be? 'Cause you have a high fire district, and generally you have to make these 1 hour.
Yeah, it'll end up probably being, what's that called, the hardy board on the back, and then the lattice will just be applied over the top of it, and it'd be like, 1 by, or not even 1 by, it's like the slats.
So you wouldn't see through the,
No.
through the lattice?
I mean, you,
Based on what you just described, that isn't what's shown here, because you can see through it. with the
yeah.
drawing.
Well, we haven't gone to the fire department yet, but I would guess that once we start putting that on there, we'll probably have to make that 1 hour, which would be better anyway, and then we'll probably have to enclose it.
But the idea is to get some lattice, some.
To give
solid
it,
there
to give the elevation less of,
We,
4x4 sticks hanging off on the
We
end.
have comments or questions?
Without it
We're in
turning into.
Questions.
Questions.
Yeah.
But anybody else have questions?
I mean, if the fire department is just with open lattice, but I don't think they will be. It'll be nicer to enclose
Well,
it.
I do have a question
Yes.
about the lattice. So are you proposing, or do you think it would be a good idea to have any landscaping to soften it?
Well, that's what they
We
showed.
do
Yeah,
have.
there
we-
is.
we
There
have, yeah.
is.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Oh, I see,
Yeah,
so that's
and
what we
there-
were
They have a
talking.
rendering of putting in trees and,
Okay,
so
that
right
makes
now, there's
sense.
nothing there, you can see.
Yeah.
So
Right.
they're proposing landscaping.
Yeah.
Okay,
And by just doing landscaping, that's where we started. It would take a long time for that landscaping to really go up. So it just seemed nicer to put the lattice on there and make it look like a more solid balcony than just 2x10s hanging off the side of the wall. kind of.
Well, I looked at the house at the front and I looked at the house at the back. I think anything you do to this house will make it look.
Agreed.
Yes.
But, and I understand you're only here for comments. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so.
You could add a lot to this house and make it look.
If there's any questions, we can certainly go to comments. Since Joe, you were kind of there already.
No, I looked at what they're requiring. It's only comments. It's fine what you're doing. Yeah. You can
It's a
make
young
comments.
couple. They have a new baby. They're want to keep the budget within line, and so we were trying to do some things that made it look nice, but concentrated on the landscape and then some few elements to the house itself.
Okay.
There is, well, 2 garages parking, and then there's parking.
Yeah, on the
Is
side.
is that allowed? Obviously, that parking is in the
That's been there.
setback.
That's
mean,
been
it's-
there for.
I know it's been there, but we're
Is that
doing
part of
things.
the NZO? I mean, not the NZO,
It
the
was never
zoning.
brought up, and the old original plans when the house was built had a circle drive.
I
So-
understand
so-
that, but sometimes in the zoning report that you get at time of sale,
Yeah, there was nothing about that, yeah.
But you're asking for a remodel of this house. Isn't the city going to come back and say, hey, you have to get a modification for that parking in the front setback?
well, I think that's why we're suggesting they're gonna need the whole front reviewed by transportation, just because of the hedge issue and some other stuff, so I'm assuming.
Yeah.
transportation
Does
will look
this
at all
house
that.
have an elevator?
It used to, yeah.
Oh,
But
it
that was
used
taken
to.
out during the sale.
Oh,
Oh, you saw that one, the
I
round one?
saw it, yeah.
Yeah, that was,
Other comments?
I think.
I think it's headed in the right direction. I'm gonna be interested to see the lighting, positioning on the front. You've got some indication of that here, but I'm not sure what those pictures really look like, so I'll be looking forward to seeing that. I think that the front door and the composition of this may need a little work just in terms of proportion. This looks kind of a lot bigger than its relationship to the proportion of the door. If you look at traditional craftsman approaches, this front door would have been much larger, or that overhang would have been smaller. because you've got this jammed up right against the window, so you might want to look at that.
What's on the, question, what's on the basement level? Is there anything
That's
down there?
extra storage.
Just extra, is it
But that's
head?
counted.
It was crawl, it was just under
That's
buildings.
counted in the FAR, right?
It was a permit in the 80s as being something uninhabitable.
But that's
And
part
still-
of the 99%.
Yes.
Yeah, again, that's the issue I brought up earlier, the NZO discussion, is all these homes have to count this even if they're not using it because of how the city zoning report has defined basement,
Yeah.
which is that whole 4-foot perimeter thing around the edge, regardless of the fact you have a slope.
And he was a filmmaker, so he had all his film under there. So,
So there
it
is
was-
habitable space down there?
No. It was just storage.
Storage.
35
Stuff thrown
millimeter.
in there.
Yeah. It's gone now. He passed away, but
Okay.
Okay,
It was a real-
other comments?
I won't even call it habitable, I'll call it, there is headroom space down there.
it's yeah. It's just a concrete room.
Yeah, so we have this condition all over the Riviera,
One match, that's all.
and yet they have to count all that to the FAR.
Yeah.
Okay? Any other comments? Okay, if there are no further comments, then they need to proceed to the staff hearing officer of the zoning. And typically, if we want to encourage them to do that, then we're going to make a motion that gives comments about the aesthetic, the elements that have to be considered in the modification. And as I understand it, they got to get a modification for this and a modification for that. Correct?
Yeah. And
Two.
And there was a bit of a gray zone, because when we started, just changing the windows really was exempt.
Right, but
And so,
now you're doing all this other stuff. So they're probably going to be looking, if the board's encouraging to,
You're on, you're on.
They would look, if you're encouraging them to proceed to the staff hearing officer, then they're going to want to look for supportive comments for the aesthetics of the modification. So the chair would look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, but could you remind me of what the two mods that they are that are
It's
needed?
a modification front and back, because they have a.
Front and back.
They have a street down here and a street up here, so it puts 30 feet, because they're on front streets, the zoning requires 30 feet in the front, 30 feet in the back. So this little element right here is the only place that if this was a brand-new lot, they could actually build something without a modification.
Just for clarification, there are two front setback, or sorry, there are two front modifications because
Two front.
yeah, and a possible open yard modification as well.
Oh, is it? Okay, so for the 1,250 square feet, so there's an open yard modification. So if you want to look at the landscape plan, based on what I see, they haven't identified any 1,250 square feet. So you're going to
yeah,
ask for
there's,
mod, not
yeah,
mod?
there's not enough room for that.
So again, from a landscape standpoint, if we're willing to give this a positive review, then the staff hearing officer is going to need to hear from us about whether or not we're comfortable if they not provide the 1,250 square feet. Because if they did, they'd have to provide it in the setbacks on a relatively level site, which they don't have.
Okay, so I can only make comments, and I would like the applicants to know that the board appreciates the design that they're proposing. In general, we would like them to proceed with the staff hearing officer to go ahead and get their 3 modifications, 2 for the front yard and 1 possible for the open yard required. And in general, the board feels that due to the constraints of the site, they've done a good job following neighborhood preservation findings, including consistency and appearance. Do I need to make the findings?
We're
Okay.
just making comments, We're not giving the project design approval.
I think I'd like to add to that, that we come back, you come back with just give, say word this right, give the landscaping more thought to what is going to be allowed in the front yard.
Oh, go to the roads department and check that all out.
Oh, yeah, go to the transportation
Yeah.
department.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
So is that part of your motion?
yes,
Okay. Right, is that your motion?
yes.
Okay, so is there a
And
second?
Denise is going to say something.
I'm second the motion, and now it's
There
open to
is a second to the
discussion.
motion. Further
Yeah.
discussion.
Under discussion, could you add about something to reconsider the use of the ficus for the hedge material around this?
Yeah, I'm not going to use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, but this is a motion on the floor, so
Yes, I'd like to add what Denise is saying to the
To
motion.
reconsider the use of ficus for hedge material.
is that acceptable to the seconder of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion? Any further discussions? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Great, we will see you after you get back from this stuff hearing.
Thank you.
We just need to keep one copy so you guys can take pictures.
Do you want to
and
keep
then
this old one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the old ones, and then if you could just fill out that form from
No,
the.
this is,
So she'll keep both of those. And here's the photos that go with that.
I think we've got a couple of our other drawings in there.
Okay.
And we got this.
Okay, we're a little bit ahead, but not that much ahead. So let's move on to item number 5, 421 West Mountain Drive. Any action may be taken, this is a new item, any action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. Project requires Tier 3 stormwater management
wrong one.
plan compliance. Because this is a new item, we will read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to add an 835 square foot, two-story addition to an existing 1,116 square foot single-family residence with an existing 485 square foot detached two-car garage. Is that working? Okay. Let me try this again. Proposal to add an 835 square foot, two-story addition to an existing 1,116 square foot single-family residence with an existing 485 square foot detached two-car garage. The proposed total of 2,360 square feet on a 1 acre lot in the Hillside Design District is 48% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. This project will address violations in zoning information report ZIR 2013-00564. Welcome. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, my name is Christian Howell, and I'm representing the client.
My name is Brandon Doheny.
Welcome. So this is the first time we've seen it, so if you could share with us what you're doing, please.
Okay. This is actually an updated set here.
Let me get rid of this one.
To get you a little familiar with it, this is the existing residence here on the corner of Foothill Road and Mountain Drive. There's at the main level, it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and what we're proposing is to extend the main level to the north, adding a master bedroom, master bathroom, and circulation to the lower level. At the lower level, we're proposing an additional bedroom, bathroom, and laundry room, as well as access to the lower level crawl space / basement of the existing residence. Show you PA 2.1. This is the existing lower level crawl space / basement with roughly 6 feet of head clearance. What we propose is for this lower level is to have it built into the ground a few feet, but given the existing topography, would still allow for a walkout at the bedroom. And then circulation would continue upstairs to the main level on sheet A 2.2. Which goes up to the master bedroom, master bath, closet, and circulation to the existing house. the approach to the proposed part is by splitting a hallway through the 2 existing bedrooms in the main residence. And that is basically what we're proposing. On a 3.1, you can see the elevations, which keep the character of the existing residence, but provide additional needed square footage for the family.
Okay, anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Before questions and answers, is there anyone in the public wishing to address this project? Katie, did we receive any correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chair will then close public comment, seeing no one come forward, and bring it back to the board for questions and answers, or questions and comments. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question real quick, Mr. Just a clarification. What's going on right here with the roofs? Looks kind of strange.
This is set back from the existing house.
Okay.
So
those tiles actually come out a little bit, right? This one kind of out.
It's coming
Yeah,
toward you,
correct.
this is back.
Like that, kind of like that.
No, the roof plan actually kind of clears that up. So this is all back here.
So it doesn't overhang. This is sitting forward of that wall.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Might want to erase my,
Okay.
sorry about that.
Sorry.
Got it, I got it.
Other questions?
No, this just depicts existing, the dash line. Yeah, it's all the barrel tile.
Photographs existing house. Okay, other questions?
How close is it, there's a creek that runs through the, is it on the?
There's
Is it-
a drainage
Comes all the way down
that
the mountain.
runs through there.
Okay.
And
Which is right.
this is the flow line of that there.
Yeah.
So this set of doors opens onto grade, correct? Down here?
Correct.
And so that looks like, oops, that's this set of doors.
Yes,
That's the set of doors that's working on this little balcony.
correct.
And that balcony looks to be
5 feet.
5 feet, okay, across the back. All right, other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. In the back of the house, is there a view? What do you see? Is like,
No, it goes uphill and it's
oh,
pretty
at the
heavily
back
wooded.
up the hill, you're looking at a grove of oak trees and stuff? Is that what's happening?
It goes down and up and then really up.
Which is opposite this.
Okay, I'm sorry. This side of the house, what is this house side facing? What is this side of the house facing?
It faces east.
Yeah, what's it facing to?
Faces right into
So on the
trees
site plan,
and the ground starts up.
Here we go.
yeah, so this
It is.
here.
Got it.
It's
and
climbing up.
Climbs up
Climbing
this
up this
way,
way.
yeah.
Thank you.
I've driven by there 2 billion times, and I never looked at the house, because behind all those hedges and trees right there on the corner.
Okay, other questions? Okay, let's go to comments. And we can take any action we'd like today. If we felt it was appropriate, we can give a project design approval, or we can just give a comments, et cetera.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, because of the location of the house, the reason I asked is there's a little, you could develop the elevation a little bit more, but I don't know if it matters because no one sees it. But I was looking at this, it'd be kind of possible to pull the balcony across and have brackets, but that's a cost issue and it's in back of the house. So I don't know if it's an issue. You're missing a railing. I'd kind of like to see the railings. And the front door, is this the front door?
Yes.
You know, that's kind of,
Where's the picture? Where's the picture?
That's all existing.
yeah.
The picture?
Let's see the existing. Oh, okay. Wait a minute, that,
We never get
I'm
them down here.
confused. So this is the, this is the back?
That, yeah,
And then,
that's the patio.
where's the, oh, this is the
That's-
front door.
Well, this is the front. Well, this is the street side.
What elevation is this
So
one?
this
That
is
window,
the
this
side.
window is that window, correct?
Correct.
And that set of doors is that. So where is this? Do we have a photograph?
We don't have a photo of that.
Which side of the house is that?
That is the driveway side.
Let's go back to this.
Oh, it's this side here.
So that is this side right here.
This side over here.
So that's all existing?
That side from the
Front,
street.
that's the front door.
That's the
what's
front.
considered the front door.
That's this. That's this photograph here. We don't have a picture of that side. So I think it would be helpful when you come back to make sure you get us a picture of that
Okay.
side, please. Okay. Comments?
One of the reasons why this balcony doesn't extend all the way is there's a bedroom window right there that
looks into there.
Yeah.
I think that what you're trying to do is probably okay, but it's not there. And the reason is this is, you have this wonderful scaled little casita, little Spanish cottage with a great front porch, and you're gonna add to this on this end. And this whole piece is not in proportion to what you're doing. I think that this whole element has to come down. The relationship between the top of that window and this is really important, and I think you're doing a disservice to your whole composition. You have a wonderful little house here, and you can see this from the road, because I see it every Saturday morning. And I think that you need to rethink how that roof works. And it may be that what you really want to do is not engage, don't let the roof plan engage that way. Let it engage opposite of what you're doing. So, in other words, right now you've got a simple little roof like this, going like that, whoops. And I think what you might want to do is take this roof element and let it gauge below it rather than above it. That's your geometry challenge, because you're trying to introduce this roof. And I think that would allow you to get an elevation profile with this nice little porch that you have out here, and allows this thing to engage down here and let this roof come into that roof. And then you've got, I think, a nice composition, and much more, because you have you're not trying to impose a contemporary design in this. You're engaging the traditional design, and I think that's how one would want to see it, so that the windows really have a proportional relationship to that.
You're right here, because this is nice here.
Yeah, that's
but
really.
that is not.
Yeah, so you kind of need to capture what's going on there. So it's just the geometry of how this roof is attached to that roof. And I think you just need to lower it.
Okay.
To make it
Is that high because you have that you have a volume ceiling in there?
It's a vaulted ceiling in there.
Vaulted ceiling. Well,
I
maybe
think
you can
even
still get the vaulted ceiling.
But drop it down. And you're still going to have a wonderful vaulted ceiling inside. If you look at some of the great Spanish homes that we all kind of look to in Santa Barbara, even some of the smaller ones have really wonderful vaulted ceilings, and they're not that high. They look really cool because you're going to vault that up. So I think you need to drop that down, and then the composition will kind of come together.
Have you brought that addition right there all the way out to the front of the porch?
Yeah, that's due to some.
Yeah, so they did that, and that's okay. I mean, you can
That's
still
all right,
make
yeah,
it work.
but you could even, you have a dead space right there in the hallway that.
Yeah, you could put a door.
Door right
Whoops,
there.
no, excuse me, that's the bottom plate.
Right there.
Oh, but they got a
Oh, the
closet.
closet
Yeah, they
right
got a
there.
closet. But they could put a little window right there into this staircase.
Would look very.
Yeah, very
hacienda.
Spanishy,
Very
very
Spanish.
hacienda. So I think you're kind of going in the right direction, but you need to really work on the geometry of the roof.
Guys keep talking, you're going to have to charge them for your
Whatever. You're close, but you're not there yet.
Yeah, I think we could drop it a foot anything
Oh,
more
no,
than
you need to drop it more. You really need to rethink your geometry. A foot's not going to do. You're not going to do it. You really need to rethink it.
Okay.
Right?
When you
And-
come up Foothill right there, just as you start to make the turn, or after maybe you look right left, you look right at it.
You look right at
that
it.
whole
Yeah.
west elevation.
Yeah, I know you want a vaulted ceiling, but you really need to rethink it.
well, it's a 9-foot plate right now. So
you-
if we go to an 8-foot plate, then
You need to drop the whole thing down.
to less than an 8-foot plate.
No, you need,
Okay, Fred.
you need
Whatever it is.
to drop it, and I could probably share with you how to do it, but I can't do it here in this meeting because I don't have enough time. I need 15 minutes to do it. Okay? You just need to really rethink it. Okay?
If you keep saying a dimension, you're forgetting the fact that you have the rest of the existing house to put it with. You can't just come up with a dimension of where you're gonna put it, because then it doesn't fit the existing house. That's what we're trying to.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to say.
I have
Okay.
a question.
Yes.
So are you anticipating doing some landscaping around the addition, some newer landscape to make it settle into the site?
There's nothing proposed right now. It's pretty
It's going right there, right?
wooded around there.
Mhm.
There's pretty much natural landscape all throughout there.
Yeah,
So
but
it's
you're going to
going-
be
it's going
scarring
right
it
in
up to
here.
do this. That's why I ask, but you'll be clearing a bit to get this addition in.
There is some clear space here. I don't know what that distance is.
No,
Yeah, see right here?
I
There's-
see.
It's kind of clear. I don't know how big that is, but it's
Okay,
kind of clear.
I see.
Yeah, it's just-
So no
it's-
new
it's-
landscaping.
It's
intended.
coming, it's
Can I-
going right against that.
Can I see these?
Yeah,
Thanks.
sure.
I see.
Okay. All right, other comments?
Cute house.
Agree with Fred's analysis?
So the chair would then entertain a motion. If you're in agreement with those analysis, then your motion may want to be just comments to have them come back, but I'll leave it up to you. You're making the motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion for, let's see, we are on,
We're not doing anything specific, so unless you're,
okay, with the following comments, that we appreciate the direction in which you're going with the architecture and as it sits on the site, and that we could appreciate you lowering the existing roof height to be more consistent with the existing low-slung hacienda-type architecture. And that you return to us either in 2 weeks or indefinitely, your choice.
No, you need to make that decision. You got like one spot left, so maybe indefinitely.
Indefinitely. Okay, to the full board. And that you will have to bring your Tier 3 SWIMP compliance as well?
They don't need to bring that just yet, just before final.
All right.
We were under the impression that that wasn't required due to the footprint being less than 500 square feet.
It's the addition or replacement of any new or replaced impervious surface 500 square feet or greater. And don't have it in front of me, but is this in the hillside? I can't. Yeah, it's in the hillside design district. So anything that's 500 square feet of new or replaced impervious surface is an automatic Tier 3 trigger.
So the hallway would be considered part of that then?
Any new square footage or replaced square footage is counted.
Total by
You have 835, it says.
above the farm. But you guys can work that out. That doesn't need to be part of our motion.
That was my motion. Are
Okay,
there any?
that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to that
I'll
motion?
second.
I have a suggestion.
Discussion.
Yes.
I have a discussion, possibly rewording the lowering of the plate height to studying lowering the plate height of new addition in relationship to the existing house roof configuration.
What he said?
Can you say that again a little?
Can you say that, please?
Study lowering the plate height of the new addition in relationship to the existing house roof configuration.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's Acceptable to the seconder? Who
Yes,
seconded?
I seconded.
Okay. So that's the motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here.
Then the
Okay.
updated.
And then if I can have you fill this form out for the new sections.
We need that set.
That's set. And here's the rest of the photographs.
Photographs. Just want to see more. So cute.
So we're now running ahead 20 minutes. Let's take a 10-minute break, and I see that our applicant is here for item 6, so let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll start a little bit early. Okay? Excuse me.
No.
I'm sorry. We're in the wrong pew. Okay. Item number 6, 1440 West Valerio Street. This is a new item, proposal to construct a 220-square-foot second-story addition for an accessory space above an existing 292-square-foot detached two-car garage. No additions or alterations are proposed to the existing 1,007-square-foot single-family residence. Proposed total of 1,319 square feet of development, which includes an existing 44-square-foot shed on a 5,909 square foot lot located in Hillside Design District, is 50% of the maximum allowed Florida lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer review is requested for a zoning modification to allow for additions that change the basic characteristics of the building that is legally non-conforming to the interior setback. This is here for comments only. Project requires staff hearing officer review for zoning modifications request.
Mr. Chair, I need to interrupt for a second because I need to step down on this due to a possible conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let the record show that Ms. Bernstein had to recuse herself from the project. And if you could introduce yourself, please.
My name is Hugh Twibell. I'm the architect for Rubino Arroyo.
Okay, if you could explain the project, please. Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I introduce myself again?
That's yes, please.
You did.
Hugh Twibell, architect for Ramiro Arroyo. This is an existing house on Valerio and Calle Poniente. Has an existing garage in the back, and the owner wants to add a second floor over the existing garage. Currently, the garage is 2.5 feet from the property line, or approximately 2.5 feet, and the current setbacks require 5 feet, so we're stepping the second floor back an additional 2.5 feet, and then we need to have a 10-foot separation between buildings, and so the second floor, we're stepping that back also 10 feet from the existing building. You can see the floor plan here is the garage with the stairs going up, and the second floor with the setback. So these two sections would just be roof. The existing, I don't know, you've probably seen the existing photos. These are some close-ups that they asked me to bring with me. This is the existing front of the house, which has gable tile roofs. But the back of the house is a Pueblo style, so it's sort of a mix of roof lines. This would be this end of the house here, which would be the north end, or I'm sorry, the east end. This is the back of the house, and this would be the west end of the house. So you can see the gables here, partial gable here, and a gable here, but on the back and the back here is all a Pueblo style. So what I did in designing the structure was I tried to take this element in the front here, which is a gable, and it has a little buttress on the front. Yeah, you can see the windows are the trims are projected out, and tried to mimic that because this part, I felt this part here, we're trying to sort of accentuate that and do all of this as Pueblo style. So we mimic that here with a little buttress, and then pop the windows out with the trim. And then the rest of the building is just a Pueblo style. And we have a minimum amount of windows. This is the back of the building here. This is the side facing the yard. This would be the side facing the neighbor, and this is the side facing the front. And we've got our solar access. There's a 4-foot retaining wall here existing, so we meet the solar access. And we have 8-foot ceilings with a foot between and the parapet on the top. So that's basically it. It's pretty straightforward.
6 foot, is that?
It's a 5-foot setback, and this is currently 2.5, so we have to set this back an additional 2.5 feet. And because of this situation, we require a technical modification, and so that's why we're here for comments from your board.
So that's the modification for staff hearing officer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No, I think that's it. Materials colors probably match existing. One thing I might add is that the existing structure has a roof that slopes this direction. And so above these doors are 2 windows, and the roof above the roof above the plate height here is about 4 feet.
That's what we're seeing here.
Exactly. It's 4 feet or more. It could be 6 feet. So we're really, from the front, it's not going to appear that much taller than it was. It's kind of odd.
So that's the side elevation? we're seeing?
Right.
Okay.
And inside, it's just open beam. There's nothing up here. These windows were just sort of like clear story windows.
This is the back end.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, before we go to questions and comments from the board, I do have one public speaker slip, and we do have one letter that I know of. And I'll have the speaker come up in a moment. We did get a letter from the adjacent property owner to the west, I guess it is, or to the north.
This one here.
Yeah, to the north, from a Vicky Hill. I assume you all had a chance to read the letter? Everybody looked at it? Okay. So I'm not going to read it into the record at this point. And then, is it Kimberly? If you come forward, please. And you've got 2 minutes to address the board. Yes, you need to speak into that microphone. Thank you.
My name, is it on?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Kimberly Shizes, and I'm here on behalf of Vicky Hill. So I wasn't sure if you'd received her letter, but I won't read it into the record. But I will sort of reiterate some of the key points that weren't discussed so far. One being that the way that there's a planning issue, but that can be taken up with a hearing officer, and that's the continuation and enhancement of a legal nonconforming structure. But another issue is that the way it's designed right now is there are no windows on the side that face Valerio, or that face the yard, correct? But there are windows on the side that face into Vicky's house. And that just seems, if you're going to take windows off one side and you want to protect the neighbor's privacy, it seems like you would switch that around a little bit, because this addition's going to look right down into the bedroom that's on the back. Another issue that wasn't discussed is, in order to implement this project, I think she brought up the issue of this oak tree, this specimen oak tree that's been there forever, and I'm hoping you can address that in some way. And of course, the other issue is, in terms of design, is I didn't see a lot of pictures of the existing garage. So what's the compatibility of this addition with the architecture of the existing garage?
That's those guys here.
So those are the issues.
Back, that's the side. I don't think we have one at the other side. I guess that's
But
okay.
to make it work and meet the setbacks, you're.
I understand. We'll be
you'll be addressing that.
Okay.
So other than, I was just wanting to reiterate the concerns that she had in her letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to give that back. Any other correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair, but I'd like to speak to some of the concerns. I talked to the adjacent homeowner, and two of her concerns were, one, the power lines that kind of hang. I think she brought that up in her letter. I talked to Jaime about that. He said that's not really within your purview to comment on. That they can be restrung. That's just not something that's your review. And then in regards to the tree, that's also something he said is a legal matter between two neighbors that we won't get involved in. So to just comment on the actual design of the structure itself and then the legality of the tree trimming or whatever will be handled amongst the neighbors. Okay?
Okay, thank you. So then I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. And before we start, Katie, I want to go to you for a question. I was over at the site. There is a lot of stuff on this site.
Okay.
It's not very well kept. It was very hard to see this building even just standing on the street. And of course, when we go to properties, unless we're given permission by the owners, we only can look at what we can look from the public right-of-way. So there's so much on this site that I couldn't hardly see the building, including what appears to be 2 vehicles that are being stored under canvases, et cetera. And I was looking at the zoning ordinance under storage, section 28.87.190. It says no portion of any front yard or any required interior setback, open yard, private outdoor living space, or front porch shall be used for permanent storage of motor vehicles, trailers, airplanes, et cetera, et cetera. Permanent storage as used in this section shall be mean storage for a period of 48 or more consecutive hours. I'm concerned that we're looking at a project that hasn't been vetted by a zoning officer's review of the existing conditions. Can you comment on that, please?
Well, unless there was a complaint filed, there wouldn't be a zoning officer going out to look at the building unless the property was sold and changed hands, in which they need a ZIR.
But even if this board is trying to make a determination about the acceptability of the aesthetics of the proposed addition and we can't see it because of the stuff illegally stored in front of it, can't we get somebody to go look at it?
I can ask Jaime.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to questions.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, real quick question.
Is this being removed?
Yes,
So it's
we're taking it down to an 8-foot plate.
Oh, okay, so you're taking this and replacing it with what you designed? And, okay, thank you.
Is it structurally sound, the garage right now? The foundation and the walls?
The foundation, we haven't dug around to check the footings.
You don't
We
know
may-
yet?
Yeah,
You
we
don't.
may have to modify the footings to take the second story.
Modify or remove, I mean, you're putting a second story on a first
Yeah.
story building.
Typically, they used to allow you to add a second story without modifying the foundation because they felt that the foundation was
Yeah,
designed to carry a floor load, but there was no floor load, there's just a roof. And so they would allow you to add a second story, but
Okay, well, I guess
we'll have
still-
to do some digging around there and find out what the situation. We may have to underpin some points and put in posts to support that.
Other questions? Yes.
About the oak tree, I know we were just told we can't mention it, but of course as a landscape designer, I'm very, concerned about it. Our oaks are very protected in this town, I know, and is it on this property?
No, it's on the neighboring property.
Okay, so
And
you're
it,
gonna
and
have to get
it has,
permission
it
to
does
come-
overhang. I'm also a landscape architect as well as an architect. And Mr. Ramiro has a degree from Cal Poly Pomona in landscape architecture. And he works for the city parks department, so he's aware of the situation too. And I feel that he and I could probably do a pretty good job of trimming the tree without affecting it. I think there's one branch that's probably about 4 or 5 inch diameter that would be affected that I could see. But, if necessary, we'd be happy to hire an arborist to come in and take a look at it too.
Probably a good idea.
One of them, I'm going to, if I may, follow up with Denise's question. It would be, in my view, I know that staff has advised us there's a legal issue about the tree, but from an aesthetic standpoint and from a privacy, because one of the things we're going to look at is a privacy issue between the two properties. And I think you indicated that you thought you had brought a plan showing the adjacent buildings, but that didn't show up yet.
Well, I've got a photograph.
But in standing out on the street and looking down here, there is a large branch that's hanging into this area right now. I mean, in fact, it looks like it's into the cars that are parked there. I mean, so that's got to be 5 feet or something. you know, it looks low. But, you know, anyway, what would be important is to know where that tree is, because what I was trying to figure out, Ms. Hill's letter alludes to the fact that this second floor is going to look into the bedroom. But it was so vegetated over here, I couldn't see where that was on this property, couldn't see where that window is. There also appears to be a shed or something right up against the property line on that property back here somewhere. I don't know whether it's up the hill or down here. I couldn't tell. It looked like there was one here and there was one up further, just standing on the street. So that's probably going to be important information to understand as we start to address the issues about where windows go. So kind of knowing where that tree is and what you can see or what you can't see via the tree because it's on the other property will probably be a pretty important part of the conversation. Other questions?
Is that an aerial photograph that shows the tree that you have there? Can we see it?
Can we put it up on the camera?
Can I respond to that, Fred?
Yeah.
The tree is up in this area up here.
Oh, is it way up
The base
there?
of the trunk, and it grows out this way. The house is about right in here.
Okay.
And the neighbor has a carport that comes all the way to the property line.
I saw that. So I think it would
The
just...
bedroom is that shed that you saw back here, so that the
Oh, okay.
shading of that garage, that bedroom that's mentioned in the letter is caused by this carport roof, which goes all the way back to that bedroom rather than by,
Right.
and I think the bedroom is actually right in this area.
Okay,
here.
so that would be just helpful to have on a drawing so we kind of understand it.
Yeah, I had a drawing which I meant to bring that shows where this house is. There's another house
So
here.
this is the oak tree we're talking about, and you're saying the trunk is probably back here somewhere.
I think it's right in here. I think this is another oak tree back in here, but I think
And
it's
so
here.
this house has some kind of configuration under that tree.
Here's looking
Right.
up that, here's looking up that and the
Yeah, I
tree, and
couldn't
here's the
do
house
it.
in the,
Here's the carport, which comes back about here. And then
here's the carport right here.
bedroom.
So anyway, I think that'll be
Yeah.
helpful to figure this out.
This carport
Yeah.
to this house here is right.
Okay. So you want me to locate the tree and approximate
Yeah,
the
or yeah,
drip line?
more or less, so we could just
Yeah.
kind of see where things are at, so
Okay.
we could, in the windows or whatever, so we
Right.
can kind of understand what's going on there.
Yeah.
That would be most helpful.
This right here is the garage, existing garage right
Right.
there,
Yeah.
on the front of the garage, the
Right.
white.
Yeah, that's this guy. The branch I was looking at was this branch right there.
I don't know if that's this, yeah, I guess that would be the
I'm
same
assuming
tree.
it's the same tree, I don't know.
Because this roof comes back here, so
I think
there
it's-
wouldn't be another tree.
I think it's like right there.
Yeah.
All right, so
So show oak tree.
just kind of generally what's going on here. And then also, if you can describe to us at some point about how much pruning you might have to do to get your floor up there, just so we can see from an aesthetic standpoint and from a location standpoint. The legal issues we'll leave to the staff side of the world.
Yeah, the legal issues that I've run into in the past where I've had clients that I represented, and the neighbor trimmed the tree.
Right.
Apparently, you can trim right to the property line.
That's what I understand. But anyway, we'll let staff deal with that.
Right off.
Staff's not going to comment on that. It's a civil matter between the two, so.
So
it's not under our
we'll
purview.
take it out of our discussion. The overhead power line, Katie, as I understand it, and my experience has been is if you go over a certain amount of construction cost, then the city will make you underground. If you're not over that, then you can leave it up in the air and it gets to be wherever it is.
Yeah, I think they come from here now, and he looked into undergrounding. They come across this way to here, and it was just too expensive.
Yeah, it's very expensive. So unless that threshold is triggered, you probably don't have to do anything other than just reconnect it. Okay. Other comments?
Yeah.
Yes,
The
Denise.
style is nice. I think it fits with the house. I think it's an improvement on what's there now, that's for sure. And it's in keeping with the same sort of Spanish feel. I think once we have a little bit more clarity about the tree, where that tree is and where the windows are as far as it relates to the neighbor, then we'll be able to speak to it a little bit better. But as far as I can see right now, it's a very nice design.
Where are those other? There they are. Yes,
Yeah, I
comments?
like this style design too. I think it is an improvement in existing, however,
it probably would be a good idea to change the windows.
Whoops, where are you at? Which one?
Yeah, due to the privacy issues of the neighbors, you might want to rethink these windows, maybe make that a bigger window, or on the floor plan, maybe the window goes here, get rid of this one so that you don't peer into the neighbor.
Right.
You know.
I don't know why the clients wanted these and didn't want these.
Yeah, so that I would highly
Might
recommend.
rethink it. Part of the challenge of having windows on this side is that you're facing directly south.
It'll be east.
Or east, so you get morning sun, et cetera, so there may be some
Well, that might be
shading
nice.
problem.
East is good.
But, who knows? One of the comments I would make is that I'm hoping that as you proceed, we're going to have to approve colors and a color palette. That
You don't like that color?
No. I think that I would encourage you and your owner to show how they're going to incorporate the palette they have on the main house with the palette they have on this structure.
Yeah, I think they've started painting this.
And the only reason I say that is if you look at Luis Barragán,
Yeah.
great Mexican architect who just loves to use color.
Yeah.
Okay, but he uses it in just wonderful ways. I think there's an opportunity here to do that. I think the planting screening on the front of the house kind of helps that meld into the neighborhood. You kind of have to kind of enjoy it, but it's not in your face. So I think that, in my view, is probably a good thing. But I'm going to be interested to see how you decide to do the color palette in such a way that enhances this thing to the existing house.
Okay.
I think that's important. I think the other thing we'll want to get clear is the fence that's there on the property line. Is that changing? Is it going to be, if it stays, is it getting painted? Is it, what's going to happen to it, et cetera? Because I think that's an important relationship to the house next door, particularly because that carport next door comes right up to the property line.
Yeah.
So how you're going to do that, and probably landscaping in this sliver of land is pretty important. I'm looking to my colleagues to comment on that.
Yeah. One thing I might add, this is supposed to go away when this is done. They want to get rid of that.
Okay,
It
then
came
you
with
probably should just
They want to get rid
dash
of
that in and say it's to be removed. That way, when this goes through the process, it's not a discussion.
It came with the house.
Okay. Other comments? Okay, if we have no other comments, then the chair would look for a motion. This has to go to the staff hearing officer. We can either have it come back to us with further clarifications, or we could give the applicant positive comments to proceed to the staff hearing officer. Two or more choices for a motion.
So, do you want to do it?
Does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Comments only.
The board would like to continue this project to the full board with the following comments. The board supports the style of architecture, would recommend that the architect study the windows on the north side to relocate them on the other side of the project based on privacy issues to the adjacent neighbor. We would also like to see a drawn-out plan of the adjacent house on the, the
north.
True North, project north side, which locates the oak tree. Sketch in the canopy of the oak tree, the large canopy of the large oak tree. Also the location of the carport in relationship to this property.
Window.
Windows.
And the windows, where the windows are located.
And I think that's a bedroom.
That's a fine.
Back here, so I can show that.
And also include on your site plan that the existing shed's to be removed. And I have a question to the board regarding the issue about storage. I don't know if that's in our purview, or should I?
That's a staff issue.
Regarding whether we can get someone out there?
Yeah.
That's a staff, I'll just talk to her.
Okay, so that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion to the motion on the floor? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we'll see you back
Can you
in.
hang on to all that?
Yeah, that all goes with Katie.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, no problem. Thank you. Oh,
That's
also,
that guy.
I only need to keep one set, so if you'd like either two, you're
Louis,
welcome
better
to,
gone.
otherwise I'll just-
Better gone. Oops. These go, I think, back to Katie. Oh, no, that's my copy. I'm sorry. Okay, we're at break time. Can we break, Katie?
Yes, dinner
Okay.
is in
We're going to adjourn for a dinner break. The Monday, January 9th, 2017, Single Family Design Board. We're on item number 7, 727 San Roque Road. This is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal for additions and alterations to an existing 1,425 square foot multi-story single-family residence and 373 square foot detached garage. Proposal includes the demolition of existing 373 square foot detached garage and construction of a new 629 square foot attached garage. The proposal also includes a lower level addition of 1,149 square feet, main level addition of 155 square feet, and an upper level addition of 833 square feet, and permitting an as-built 74 square foot addition. The other site improvements including relocating the main entry, new doors, windows, interior reconfigurations, and a 26 square foot upper level deck.
96.
The proposed total of 4,265 square feet on a 30,728 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 89% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Proposal requests staff hearing officer review for proposed setback modifications and will address violations in Zoning Enforcement Report 2008-00193. If you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Dawn Sherry, the architect. Good evening. And I'm here with Scott and Carlene Wilson, the property owners.
Welcome. Okay.
Who
If
just
you
got
could-
back from Hawaii and
Oh.
they came to this meeting.
Right.
So,
Jet lag.
um,
So if you
maybe
could share with us what's going on.
So what we're doing is, do you have the photos? Do you want me to go over these with you? It's right on San Roque, right before you get to Foothill. So it's on, if you're going up San Roque, it's on the left, right before the corner. And in the front is a large hedge here. You can't see much of the property until you get to it, and then you look through the hedges and the trees, and you can see the lower level carport and part of the house. It's not very visible from the street. This is the front of the house from the driveway. This is looking west toward the front yard, close up of the front of the house. This is the backyard, from the backyard looking back toward the house. And then looking toward the existing garage from the backyard, which is, this is San Roque, and then this right here is the existing garage, 9, that we are removing and relocating. I'll show you that in a second. More photos of the front, or looking toward the garage from the rear deck, actually, there. This is looking south toward the trash area from the driveway, and this is from the existing backyard looking south. Yeah, and the property backs up to the creek. What creek? San Roque Creek. Is it San Roque Creek? I was wondering what the name of it was. Yeah, it's San Roque Creek.
Stevens Park.
Carport, you kind of get the idea of what's going on here. What's that one? That's looking from the driveway toward the street, and this is the adjacent property from the driveway looking on the other side of the street. So what the Wilsons need more room for their already growing. They're our family, but it's growing, so they need more space. And right now, the house outline does this. There is an existing two-car garage here, which is inaccessible. It used to be accessed this way, but it was always really close to the house. We want to relocate the garage entirely, demo the old garage, which is partly in the side yard setback, so we'd be eliminating that nonconformity and building a two-car garage that faces the street. Then, and adding on a lower level. This would be a split level 2-story back here, because the lower level would be lower than this main level, and the upper level would be higher than this main level, so be a 3-level house. But the second story, which is a half a story above the story, is set back behind this 1-story garage. I'll show you. Here's the existing residence. Here's the new 2-car garage. We need to maintain access to the lower level. It's a basement that has the water heater down in this area, so we had to maintain the stairs, and we wanted to have access from to the garage from the front of the house. This would be all in conformance, interior and setback wise. And then this would be the lower level. This whole area here is dropped, and so is the garage from the main level by a half a flight. And then the upper level goes up a half a flight. By the way, that nonconformity is along this setback, so we need a mod because we're just slightly in the north setback along this property line, and because this is an as-built addition, so we want to get this little area permitted. It's I think it's within a foot, maybe 6 inches.
The front, right, good. I'll wait for
And it's
questions.
just, we're attaching to somebody already did this, and then we just want to get it permitted now. The upper level is here, the master bedroom suite. Sits over the garage on the lower level. And there's some ocean views from the upper level. Roof plan. This is the existing house. So what we'd like to do is the front of the house has a funky little bay window right here that we'd like to just be a little bit more incorporated in and intentional. And we want to move it over a little bit and put a proper roof on it. Right now, the front door has a little lowered little gable that kind of tucks in underneath the existing eave, and we'd like to move the entryway because as you walk in, you right now walk in right here to this wall. And by relocating the entryway, we have a proper entry vestibule into the house, and then the living room is kind of off to the side in its own little element. So
front
we'd
door's
be
not changed
relocating
there.
the door. The door is right here right now. And that would become a window. So that's this, and we want to put a little, celebrate the entryway with a little trellis and a little gable roof. New 2-car garage. This is the master suite with a little sitting room, not with the raised plate. So it kind of looks like a little tower, but not really because it doesn't have a raised plate. You slightly see that from the street, but primarily from the street, the upper level is diminutive because it's set back so far from the street. The house right now, it has some charm, and the whole idea, there's some funky things with these little roofs, and the idea is just to really just make it do it better. We want to do the house better. So this is the south elevation showing the master suite and the lower level bedrooms. From the
You're adding over 2,000 square feet to the house. Yeah.
whatever it says. And then from the backyard, then, as you can imagine, the upper level would be a half a story up from the backyard. So we thought it would be nice to be able to access the master suite from the yard. And the stair element kind of softened the story and a half that we had. It makes it look like a one story with an understory, essentially. Then from the back of the house, then the upper level has a deck off the master that overlooks the creek and also has some pretty nice views. There's a little bay window here, over the, in the bathtub area of the master suite. And then this is kind of the kids' realm, the bedrooms on the lower level. Walk out onto the yard toward the creek. It's all back on this elevation here. So it's coming down the stairs. These are the kids' bedrooms, and then their kind of family room area there. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Katie, did we get any communication?
No, Mr. Chair, I did not.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. What are the plate heights for your new addition?
Should be on here.
So 23.
They're 8 feet. I think they're just standard.
22.9.
That's the overall. I'm just wondering, floor to floor.
Yeah, they're 8 feet.
Yeah, they're 8 feet. Yeah.
Other questions? So just to be clear, modification, you're only asking for one modification? And that's because this existing is in the setback?
Yeah.
Okay. And
That
then,
whole, is that in line, that whole wall of the house is in
The
the,
existing house
the
is
whole
too.
line of that north elevation is in the setback? Correct, yeah.
okay, and then on your elevation drawings, you're showing some indication of siding. My memory says this is kind of a stucco house now. There's some materials shown here, here, and here that look different. What are those? Or what are you thinking?
We wanted to mix it up a little bit.
So this is vertical, horizontal, so that would only occur in these two places?
Where, let's see, I'm
This is
hard
the
to
north,
see
this is the
upside
north
down.
elevation? The north
The
elevation.
existing,
That's the one facing towards Foothill,
North elevation,
right?
this is
Yep.
no,
Right, because it's the fireplaces on
That's the existing house right there.
Yeah.
this is the as-built addition, this is existing.
Yep.
So is that just indicating as-built, or is that a material that's actually there?
Wood existing on the side of the house there? I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. That's
Okay, so that's existing.
This
This
is just
new.
because it
It's
was
new.
just a wood
And
element.
then this is that little thing that got added.
It's existing.
And that's existing.
That's
Okay,
as-built.
that clarifies for me. And then on the south elevation,
I think that's it.
those are the first floor windows facing south, and then
That's
these
all
are the
new,
windows.
yeah.
This is all new, okay.
These are what, these are.
And then on this elevation, looking that way, there's a window here that's looking onto the slope of this roof. I guess I'm gonna be curious to see how you get water out of here, because you got water going.
A cricket, cricket should show up on the roof plan.
Let's see.
We have to have that window because it needs.
No,
the
I
kitchen
understand, I'm
desperately
just
needs
curious
it.
about how you're gonna do that. And then the other last question I had is on the existing fireplace.
Gone in yet, but, yeah. Go ahead.
The existing fireplace, I was trying to see, it doesn't appear to meet the, or does it, Joe? The code? In terms of 10 feet, 10 and 2?
No, it does not.
So I wonder if they're gonna make you touch that.
You have to raise this because you're only about 8 feet across. from
So you
here.
may have to do
6
something with
feet. In
that
fact,
fireplace.
Quarter-inch scale, yeah, about 4 feet across there, 4 or 5 feet. It has to come up at least 2 more feet.
Okay, are there other questions?
And in fact, you've showed it higher here.
Yeah. Well, it is a little bit, but it's not quite right yet. Okay, if no more questions, then let's go to comments.
See, this one you have peak below, or this one's above, and this one's below here.
So it's sort of, this is here for comments only, because it has to go for the modification on the north side.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have comments.
Yes.
I support this. I think it's a rather substantial addition, and I think it's well within the bulk and scale of the house. I think it flows. The only concern I have is the master bedroom windows on this side kind of look into the adjacent property. Look, and so I'm just wondering if that's going to be a privacy issue regarding those windows looking down into the neighbor. And no neighbors are here, but I guess that's kind of my concern.
Pull up the site plan, let's see what Brian has mentioned.
But otherwise, I think architecturally I can support the project. It's at 89 FAR.
Oh, right here. No, not really. Oh, yeah, not really. Not really. Garage is here.
I'm assuming that's a garage.
But the other issue is it's not really 2 stories high either. So it's kind of, so, okay, well, those are my comments.
Okay, other comments?
I support the project. I think it's, yeah, it's, you probably end up tweaking it a little bit this way or that way by the time we see it again. Yeah, it's not oversized for the San Roque. In this area, there's huge houses. It's not oversized. It's in keeping with the style of San Roque.
Okay, other comments?
I agree with my colleagues.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I agree as well. I was just wondering, though, if you have any comments on, like, some of the window
The only
proportions, or,
The only thing I'm a little concerned about, I walked to the property, walked up and down the street, and you're right, this is at 89%, but this is on a very large parcel, and we've got a lot of large homes, so it's a little above our guideline of 85, but it's not out of line. So as we go through this process, I hope whoever makes motions makes sure that discussion is included about the FAR. But I am a little concerned about the size of the windows on this side, only up on the second floor. I think this thing is down low enough, and given what's out there and hedges and landscaping between the 2 properties, even though the house with windows is like over here on the lower property, I don't see a big concern here, but I think there might be a concern up here. And so maybe just look at, I forgot what's up there.
This is back.
Yeah, it's back, but let's see.
Go forward here.
Sometimes just a little tweak can make all the difference.
And it's stepped back from here, and this property
Is down here.
is significantly lower.
And it's a garage right there.
And there's a
It's
garage
another
here. So
7, 8
that may not
feet
be a
or
big
so.
issue, but something to look at.
but if they're in their yard, will they be able to see them in their windows?
I don't know. We don't
Probably not.
don't have that information.
And if they are, they'd have to be standing at the windows. They're going to be walking to and from the bedroom to the bathroom in the back part of the house, not right in front of any of these windows. These windows these are the windows with the ocean view.
I guess if I wanted to finish my comment,
Yeah.
maybe a site section in that one little area going across
Kind of let us help understand.
would be good.
Showing the lot next door.
Yeah, would be helpful. Okay, other comments?
You get it, you say you have an ocean view. Do you have an island view from there?
Yeah.
They're looking out at, they're looking out at Santa Rosa.
Don,
Okay.
have you talked to any of the neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
I've spoken to all the neighbors, with an exception of one or two that I haven't been in contact with, but left them all letters and we spoke to the ones that contacted me. Yeah.
You're concerned about.
They're on board and I told them they can, if they have questions or anything, we can discuss them and.
So if we're done with comments and someone's ready to make the motion, of course, we can always make motions with comments for return, the full board, or consent. If we're in a position where we felt comfortable, we could give them a motion to proceed to the staff hearing officer. But if you do that, then you need to make comments about the acceptability of the little sliver here of aesthetics in terms of being back in the setback, because that's what the staff hearing officer will want to hear from our board. So the chair would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I think we should continue the project and bring it back. And
full board?
Full board, yes, definitely. With comments that, yes, we agree, the board agrees with your modification for the north elevation. And I don't think anything else we disagreed on.
A site section.
Say that again?
Have a site section.
Little site section.
Oh, yeah, and supply us with a site section, including the property next door, the garage and the height of the property next door.
South.
On the south elevation. And
Is that your motion?
that's my motion.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay, is there further discussion to the motion on the floor?
I have a question. Was that continued to the show or indefinitely to the full board?
And definitely to the full board.
But they could go ahead and
So
go
you're
to
forwarding the comments to the show to return back to the full
the
board?
full
Okay.
board. Yes, correct. So that's the motion. Everyone understand the motion?
I think you have to add something about this. If it's going to show, you have to add something like you mentioned.
Just say,
I think you just have to say it's aesthetically appropriate.
Aesthetically, the existing
As-built.
as-built is aesthetically pleasing.
Appropriate.
Appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. And
OFAR.
89% FAR is?
89% FAR is appropriate, or the board goes along with it, and I don't think that we need to force you to lower it.
What?
Because of the size of the property.
So just, Kathleen, to make it clear, the 89% is acceptable because of the size of the property and the neighborhood.
Doesn't cause any size, bulk, and scale issues.
Okay. All right.
And you got to be at least 100 feet above the creek, aren't you?
Yeah, they're at least.
So your view of the creek is way down there.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion? Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you after you get back from staff hearing officer. Okay? Thank you. You got to leave her. Got to leave her one. And
Just to,
okay.
I'll take one. I'm going to take one.
We're for 459 El Cielito Road. This is a new item, so I'm going to read into the record while the applicant is seating themselves. The project description, this is a proposal to construct a new 3,179 square foot, one-story, single-family residence with a 235 square foot attached art studio and a 571 square foot attached garage on a currently vacant lot where the previous single-family residence was destroyed in the Jesucito fire. Proposal also includes a new 200 square foot swimming pool, 686 square foot of covered patio, and a 1,059 square foot of, 686 square feet of covered patio and 1,059 square feet of uncovered patio. Okay. Approximately 421 cubic yards of cut and 233 cubic yards of fill will occur on the site, with 198 cubic yards of grading to be exported off-site. The proposal total of 3,985 square feet on a 1.3 acre lot is 80% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Any action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. The project does require Tier 3 stormwater management compliance. You could introduce yourself, please.
Good evening. I'm Kent Mixon, architect for the Browns. There they are. You guys can come up if you like. And I'm representing Andrew Lightis Mixon Architects. The staff description there was pretty thorough, so I won't get into a whole lot of that. Just to orient you here on the site plan, El Cielito Road here. It's not far from the intersection off of Las Canoas that heads north to Schofield Park. It's a downward sloping, gently sloping driveway that exists, tree lined through that drive, and so it creates a flag lot. All of our setbacks are 15 feet within that interior yard, with exception of the front yard. And you can see on the site plan real lightly kind of the outline of the existing house that burnt down. You can see in the photos that were supplied that the stem walls are all still there, but other than that, the site's kind of raw and scarred from the fire. There are a couple of features I should note. In this driveway, there's a huge eucalyptus tree that you can see here in this photo. We're proposing to take that down. And then there's a big rock that's in this area that you see there in that photo that the existing house was kind of built around. So tree's going away, but the rock we plan to stay and incorporate into the design of the new house. The house, in kind of general terms, is kind of a U-shaped courtyard house with the garage at the end of the driveway, and then we'll work out a walkway path to this little low wall courtyard into the entryway here, and then there's a covered loggia off the back of that main hallway, and then there's another covered loggia off the living room where it kind of takes advantage of the best views from the site, really up in the afternoon, kind of up the valley at sunsets, and then across the valley during the day and sunsets. And then this portion of the house, which is essentially the bedroom wing, will be built around this big stone rock that you see there. The driveway intends to stay essentially as it is for the most part. We will have to do some grading in this area and deal with where guest parking and access into kind of the entryway walk and so forth. But you can see we're pushed up against the setbacks on these three sides: the garage corner, this front, and then here as well. The house is intended to be, it's essentially a single story. It does have a couple of steps as the site slopes in this direction downward. There's a step here up to this bedroom wing, which is the highest part of the site. This is all the same level, and then there's a couple of steps kind of through the mudroom, laundry room, and into the garage, so it kind of naturally steps down. And then this art studio is actually about 3 feet down from this level, because that's where the site begins to kind of fall off. Traditional Spanish colonial style house, very simple. Clay tile roofs, smooth Santa Barbara plaster. We're probably going to do like a aluminum clad window. And the patio finishes, we'll get into that as we explore that with the landscape architect. We haven't gone there yet. But we're thinking about probably a brick traditional type patio or pavers on the exterior. This pool is just a kind of a simple kind of cooling off pool, not very big at all. I actually do have some images here aside from, here you guys go, you guys can share that. And then I've got, do you want to just look at those, Bernie?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a view actually that's not really even seen because if you look at the site plan, you know, this is obviously at the front of the house, but the property in front of us kind of comes to a corner at this point, and there's hedges and trees and so forth, so you don't really ever get this full advantage. If you're here, you'll get kind of partial advantage of that view, but you can see two-car garage. This would be the mudroom door in kind of the rear entrance, kitchen, living room space, TV, den off of the entryway, and then this is the bedroom wing that's kind of there. And you can kind of see from these images that we haven't shown any retaining walls or anything, so this is literally the house set into the site at this point, but you can see how this begins to kind of bury into this portion of the site, probably about 3 feet plus or minus. So we're going to have to do some retaining with the entryway probably around this side of the house once we develop that a little bit further. This is a view from the back side. This is the master bedroom wing, the bathrooms and closets there, the loggia off of the main body of the house, and this is the loggia off at the end of the living room there, and then you can see the art studio in the back. And that's the pool. As you can see, we're right at kind of the crest of the hill. And this is kind of from the other side. Art studio is here, the loggia, and then the master bedroom wing on that side. So that's about it. We're at 80% of our FARs. And we have met with the fire department regarding the driveways and so forth, and they are fine with that. We don't need to change anything with the driveway. They like that we're taking out that tree for them. But other than that, they're happy with the project.
Okay, thank you. Katie, do we have any correspondence?
No, Mr. Chair.
Is anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions and comments. We can take any action
I just have one
deemed
quick.
necessary.
What's the average plate height of your house?
We have, I think the largest plate through here is like 10 feet. Through the bedrooms, I believe it's 9.
Okay.
I'll show them right here. I guess we didn't.
That's fine.
Yeah, so that's the main living area is the largest. So.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Yes, is the driveway just soil?
No, it's actually asphalt chip seal.
Oh, okay. So, are we on question?
Yes, we're in question.
Aside from the fire department being happy about the tree, is there another reason that you're taking it out? Because it looks like you have actually room to get around it.
Well, the fire department doesn't feel that way, but it's not, it's a uke, and what we understand from others up there too, that there were other ukes around this house that they feel might have been responsible for it burning down.
If I can just make a comment too, it's got a pretty good lean going. And it's lifted, the driveway behind it is lifted up, and driving in front of it buckled down. It's aiming right at the garage.
And it's not, yeah, it's not real attractive either.
Okay, other questions?
Yes, just what material are the garage doors?
Those are going to be some wood stained, something very traditional.
Okay. We were talking about the fireplace on another project. Is this chimney okay? Is it tall enough?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
way up.
nice.
It's even
The other
it's higher-
project was
higher
an
than the
existing
peak right there.
fireplace that didn't meet the current code.
Oh, okay. No, I think it looks nice.
I just have a question. When you come back in with a landscape plan, a lot of the other homes up on El Cielito Road along this piece of it have gates and walls right at the front. I notice you haven't shown anything, but what are you thinking at this point?
Were you intending on?
Okay. Well, if you do in fact want to do that, just make sure when you come back in, somebody's drawing it
That
so
we
we
have
can
it,
take a
yeah.
look at it. Okay? All right. Any other questions?
Is this the big rock right here?
Yes. Yep.
So, comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have comments. I think it's a beautiful design. I love the way how you've incorporated in the property surrounding the rock. I like the style. It's only 80% FAR. Good job.
Thank you.
I totally support it.
Ditto.
Okay, other comments?
When I first saw your elevations, I would say some of the arches are a little high and a little not very. But then I look at this, and this really doesn't. This is a little bit different than that.
Yeah,
You need a little bit on that one. I was going to comment. You need a little bit more space between your roof and your top of your arch, but it looks good on this. I like
And
that.
they're repeating that.
Yeah,
repeating
I
that
like it.
there.
Yeah. And the windows make the walls look thick.
Do we need to talk about the swimming pool? Is that on here? Anything about the equipment or?
We haven't located that. Is that a question for me?
I guess so.
We
You just
haven't
kinda need to
located-
show that
Yeah,
where
we
you're gonna
will,
put it
yeah,
and
in
what it
our-
looks like.
We've actually already been talking about that, and they have hired a landscape architect, so we're going to be going there soon.
Okay. Any other comments? I only have one. As an artist, I would be really upset that those windows are not north-facing. The fact that they're south-facing means you can paint the view out the windows. Or you get north light. Short of that, I agree with my colleagues. So the chair would look for a motion. We can do any action. We can give this project design approval with comments. We can give it project design approval without comments. We can give just comments. In any case, in any motion, you should indicate whether it needs to come back to the full board or to consent calendar based on what your motion may be.
I'll make a motion. I'm kind of selfish. I'd like to move it back to the full board just so I could see the color board okay, so I make a motion to give this project design approval with the following comments. We'd like to see a full landscape plan. We feel that the style and design of the house is appropriate, and
you'll need to read in the.
And you need to read in the MPO findings.
Yes.
Consisting appearance is consistent with the scenic character of the city. The compatibility is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale are appropriate to the site and neighborhood. Quality of architecture and materials. The proposed structures are designed with quality, with architectural details, and the good neighbor guidelines have been followed. And also there's a mod, right?
We don't have any mod. for this,
Okay,
no.
and that's my motion.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to the
I
motion?
second it.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion?
Yeah, just a comment, did we include any walls that are going to be included or gates or?
If there's a gate to be designed or wall, we'd like to see drawings of that to be included.
Okay. That's acceptable to the seconder of the motion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, any further discussion to the motion on the floor? Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, thank you. Before we adjourn, I think that you saw emails about the appeal that's before Planning Commission on Thursday. I plan to attend to represent our board.
Time is that meeting? You know?
I think it starts at 1 o'clock, but I don't know. I haven't seen the actual agenda. I don't know where the item is on the agenda. But it'll be, I think it's posted at this point.
Okay, I'll take them.
If anybody has any comments, please let me know. We did give it positive approval to move to the staff hearing officer. This is an appeal of the staff hearing officer's decision not to allow the master bedroom to go in the front yard setback. You know, it's that 30-foot business again. And we said it was okay. So that's kind of what's happening.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay? Any further announcements? Any further comments? Okay, the chair then adjourns the Monday, January 9th Single Family Design Board.